Yo, this is Alex Mouth for Destiny, and today I have the great pleasure of speaking to Migan, the creator of Team3DAlpha. Now, if you know me, you probably know Migan. I've been talking about him for many years. He definitely inspired me with a lot of his work. I mean, I've been subscribed to him for about 4 years now, so I learned a lot from him. There's so many things that we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to break it all down about fitness. We're going to talk about strength training, some of the special strategies that Migan has learned throughout the years, and it's just going to be a crazy chat. So you're listening to a guy that I really respect, and he's just going to lay out his knowledge and wisdom. So thank you for being here today, Migan.
Hey Alex, man, I'm glad to be here. It's a great honor. You feel like you're the only one that's honored. I'm actually honored to be here, man, because again, I've been watching your development, your journey. The reason why we click so well, like I told my subscribers, is you have an open mind. You know what I mean? You don't just learn something and say, you know what, that's it. I got the holy grail. I'm done. No, you constantly keep searching for information. And to me, that's the goal of
Yeah,
knowledge. I'll just keep filling that brain with as much stuff as possible. So yeah, man, it's an honor to meet someone all the way from Canada, that has the exact same mindset, the exact same hunger for no bullshit, just truth, things like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So yeah, man.
Well, that's what I really liked about your channel, man. You always kept things raw, real, nothing fancy, like just straight to the point. And you're always talking about in your videos about combining science and bro science into one. So I think that is very, very key. Like you're learning new stuff. You look at anecdotes, you look at the studies, and it's like you're constantly learning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I said, I try to they say once you think you know everything, you stop learning, pretty much. You
Exactly.
know what I mean? So I know it's human nature to be biased and to feel like we know it all, but come on, let's be honest. We know there's science is always improving. So how much more for us little guys who are in the background trying to think that we know it all, when if a scientist with a PhD can humble himself and say, you know what, that study I published 2 years ago is bullshit. I'm gonna run another study. How much more for the average guy like you and I to also think the same way and constantly look back and say, hey, is this facts? Is this me trying to be right, or is it something that's actually true? You know what I mean? Because people,
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like people they don't want to ruin their reputation. So if they said something a year ago and they find out it doesn't really work as much as they pushed it, they refuse to let their viewers know because they don't want to seem like they're
Right. They don't want to
wrong.
look like bitches, like
Yes, I'm like, come on, you're gonna sacrifice truth for your reputation? Come on, man. So
yeah,
yeah,
like you say. I mean,
really
learning, you never stop. You're always learning, for sure. And what I like is that you're always saying how like eventually the bro science catches up to the science. Like
Mhm.
with the nucleus overload thing. At first you started doing it, you didn't know what the benefits were, but next thing you know, studies start coming out and you're piecing the puzzles together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Science always catches up to the bro science, most of the time, because people like to say, oh, because what's bro science? Bro science is really a guy who really doesn't have any scientific, evidence behind what he's saying, but he's telling you, hey, you know what? When I do ABC, I get XYZ, right?
Yeah.
So he's just telling you based on correlations, right? And I know we say correlation doesn't always mean causation. I hate that statement simply because it's true. Correlation doesn't always mean causation, but it gives you a good place to start looking.
Exactly.
You
You
know what I
shouldn't
mean?
discard it just because it's
Yeah,
not provable.
exactly. It
Yeah,
gives you a
yeah.
place to start looking. And the bro scientists, yeah, they don't know the microscope. They don't know the reason why they got the results. They just know, hey, I did this, and that. Out of what I did, something is working. I just don't know what it is. So it's
Right.
up to us to take the information they gave us and then look for which factor contributed the most to the results that they got. And which is why when Arnold would say years ago, oh man, when I get the pump, the muscle just grows, and everyone was like, man, pump has nothing to do with growth. And then a few years ago, Brad comes out with the studies where they realize, oh shit, yes, the pump actually leads to metabolic stress, which leads to growth. So it took like 40 years
Yeah,
for,
yeah, exactly.
so I mean, it's not always going to be like that. There's a lot of bro
Oh
science
yeah,
that,
of course. Some stuff's just bullshit, but eventually like there's some stuff that's true, obviously.
exactly.
Like
And it's
like
up to us.
like one thing that I really believe in, man, is the nucleus overload theory. Like I stand by it. People ask me every day, "What do you think of Migan's nucleus overload?" I'm like, "Man, I tried it. It works. I've seen the anecdotes. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that it works." So, for the viewers who don't know, can you just explain real quick what nucleus overload is and how you came about it, the success stories, all the good stuff?
Cool, cool. All right. So Nucleus Overload goes way back, man. Again, I just call it Nucleus Overload because I didn't know what to call it. Pretty much,
Badass name, that's why.
the result, the end result of Nucleus Overload is you getting obviously more satellite cell, so donating more nuclei into the muscle cell. So you have a lot of extra shit, a lot of extra nuclei. So that's why I just call it Nucleus Overload. Because you have a lot more than what you started. But anyway, the story behind it is I was always observing, even when I wasn't into bodybuilding. I grew up as an introvert, of course. So when you're an introvert, what do? You observe because you're always in your room, always on punishment, whatever. So you're always just looking around you and trying to make sense of the world. And when I grew up, again, I was always obsessed with people that have like huge, bulky physiques. Right, that was always my goal, man. Guys with big traps.
Yeah, Dragon Ball Z.
Dragon Ball Z, Brawly, Street Fighter. I mean, you name it. If you name a comic book or an anime or whatever, if you had a buff, bulky guy in there with huge straps and delts, you best believe that was my favorite character. So,
sure, yeah.
So growing up, I used to just look at people that were buff in Africa, things like that. But to me, it was just okay. These guys are just, strong as hell. I don't know how they got big. But when I started training, I started observing the people in the gym, the ones who were big, the ones who were little, and I was just keeping everything in my mind. Again, I didn't know what to do with that information. And it's not until I met a guy who I think was in freshman year in high school. His name was Emmanuel, and he used to do push-ups every day. He used to do push-ups every day, and even before we went into the swimming pool, we were going to boys' locker room to get ready. He would drop down and do like 50 to 100 push-ups. And back then, I didn't, I used to just be like, man, how can you do 50 push-ups? I was a skinny fat kid, so I was always skinny and fat cheeks and all that stuff. So I was like, man, I just want to be able to do 50 push-ups, like, how do you do that? And he goes, well, I used to do push-ups every day. I still do. I started with 10, went up to 20, and, whatever. But one thing he had in common, one thing that stood out on him was his chest. He had a big chest. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to start doing push-ups every day just so I could beat this guy and be able to do 50 push-ups. Again, he used to do it because he wanted to pump. He just wanted to be able to pump up because it was a swimming class that had guys and girls, right? So the guys, he just wanted to get pumped so he could walk out and be. So, but me, it was more like a competition thing. I was like, all right, I'm going to get to 50 push-ups. I could only do like, 6, 7 push-ups when I was a freshman. So I started doing push-ups every day. And again, my nutrition was bad, so I couldn't really see any results. Back then, I didn't know about nutrition. But then when I started training for the first time, boom, chest blew up, right? So at first I thought, yeah, I got good genetics. It's just genetics, right? I didn't really see the makings of Nucleus Overload. Then I started noticing people in the gym that would train in muscle every day, right? There was a guy, we used to call him chest and arms. All he did was chest and arms, right? Mm-hmm. Not only was his chest and arms big, due to that training, they were bigger than normal. So I thought, hey, man, this guy's not as strong as everybody else in the gym. He does the same muscle every day, but why is his chest and arms so overdeveloped? Obviously, they'll be bigger than the rest of his body because that's the only thing he trains, but they were overdeveloped. So I was like, all right, it can be genetics because what's the odds that he's coincidentally training the only 2 muscles that he's genetically good at? You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah.
So I kept going, and then I saw Ola, the Ola story that a lot of people are familiar with. Ola came in the gym and did chest every day. And in a matter of months, again, you guys know the story, his chest blew the hell up, right? I mean, huge. Then I started remembering the guy from my swimming class that used to do push-ups every day, and then all the information started rolling in. I started remembering the guys in Africa that I call them the wheelbarrow motherfuckers, right? Because they used to work for construction, and they used to carry. I mean, this is Africa. They didn't have the caterpillars and all that, so they just took wheelbarrows. They loaded a lot of bricks and cement, and they'll just carry that stuff like this. Pretty much farmer walks.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right? And all these guys had massive traps, right? You can't tell me that it was a coincidence that all the construction workers genetically just had big traps. They had massive traps, and you would ask them, hey, how, we didn't know what traps was even called. We should be like, hey, why's that so big? And everyone was like, yeah, I don't know, it's just big. And then I started looking into the different sports. I noticed that the Olympic lifters had big traps, even though they didn't really give a shit about traps. I noticed that the ballerinas had big calves. You know, the speed skaters had those huge quads. People that play soccer. I mean, you know, you sort of videos.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
these. Then I was like, man, you know what? There's something to frequency. There's something to training a muscle every day. I just didn't know what it was. But guess what? At the time, I was like, it works. Let me just do it. But then I started bodybuilding, and then I started reading about you shouldn't train a muscle every day. That's called overtraining, and da da da. You know, so that kind of scared me for a bit. You know, that kind of scared me. I was like, man, you know, you shouldn't train a muscle every day. So I should stop doing that. So I kind of deviated from the everyday thing until I heard the Johnny Jackson story.
Hmm.
That's really what changed everything because everybody knows Johnny Jackson. He's the bodybuilder with like the biggest traps. Of course, you know, he's assisted, but not everybody who's on steroids has the traps of Johnny Jackson. I mean, Kai Green is on steroids. You don't see his traps poking out his neck. So I kept investigating. I was like, man, he must have been doing something. It's not just genetics, you know? And then I finally found an interview when someone asked him, hey, Johnny, why are your traps so big? And he goes, hey, when I was a kid, at the end of every workout, I would put a bunch of plates on the barbell, almost like a rack pull, because he said it was so much weight he couldn't really do good form. So it's
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
like,
Like cheat shrugs.
yeah, and he would just do cheat shrugs every single day at the end of every workout just to show off. And when he started bodybuilding and started taking, you know what, his traps grew more than they were supposed to grow from genetics and steroids alone. So that right there, I was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm hearing too many stories of this train every day thing. And I just really started going, you know, into the books. I was like, all right, the science is not showing it yet, but let me start looking for all the occurrences of this training muscle every day thing. And then I met Matt Lazy Lion, who was skinny as hell. If you go back and watch the videos, and then took him under my wing. You know, he started bodybuilding, and guess what? The first thing that grew on Matt was traps. So if you follow the story so far, you wrote. So the first thing I asked him was, whoa, 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 this is not normal. This is not normal, Matt. What do you do for traps? He goes, I don't really do much for traps, man. I just go to the gym and train. I was like, well, when you were a kid, did you do something that hate your traps every day? And he started thinking, and he goes, oh, I forgot. When I was a kid, my dad, we used to live, he used to have me carry logs, you know, for like a fireplace on the wheelbarrow, a heavy wheelbarrow. And I used to just, because I was lazy, I didn't want to do too many trips. So I would overload the wheelbarrow with a lot of weight, and I would just carry it back and forth. And the next day, my traps will hurt like hell. I used to do this every single day. But that's don't get I remember. And guess what? When he started bodybuilding, boom, his traps took off. So that's when I was sold. I was like, you know what? There's something out there. I just got to prove it, you know. And long story short, I ran into the guy from Thailand who was the skinny Muay Thai fighter.
Oh, you actually met him.
No.
Okay, you right. Okay.
I mean, like while doing the research,
Yeah.
I shouldn't say run, but I came
Yeah, you
across
came across it. Yeah.
where he had the Cobra traps, and I sure enough, you know, I was like, you know what? I'm thinking this guy was doing something every day for his traps, right? So I go into the article, I read the interview, and sure enough, people ask him, hey man, how did you? We know this is a Muay Thai article. It was not even a bodybuilding article. It was about Muay Thai. And they go, by the way, we can't help but notice your traps. Why are your traps so overdeveloped? You a skinny guy with your traps. And he says, well, you know, when I was a skinny guy trying to get into Muay Thai, my master told me that, you know, I needed to get big. So he told me to carry buckets of water up and down, you know, like I forgot how long it was. It's in the video. I have a shitty memory, but pretty much the equivalent of football fields, back and forth, carry buckets of water. And he said I would do this every single day. And sure enough, you know, traps took off. So, you know, I was sold. From then on, I was like, you know what? How many more stories do you need to hear? You know what I mean? You know, people even watching this video right now, you probably be like, all right, get to the point. You know, like this, all the stories are leading towards something. And that's when I made the videos about it. That was back in my first video on training a muscle every day was in 2011. That's when I was telling people, hey, I don't know how it works. They just try it out because this shit fucking works. And then the science came out. I mean, the first time I saw an article on it was in, I believe, 2013, I believe. When I first saw, just pure coincidence, I was looking into journals, and then that's when I discovered satellite cells. And they were like, hey, we took a rat and we broke one of his legs. And what happened was when we broke one of his legs, the other leg had to overwork, you know, every day, you know, to handle that imbalance. And when we killed the rat finally and looked into his leg, we saw that there were more satellite cells. Right? There were more nuclei, you know, which is the nucleus into the muscle. And that led to that muscle growing faster than it was supposed to. Even though the rep was not really training, it was just that leg was overworking. It was being overtrained. So they found out, well, the reason why people that train with high frequency have this advantage in growing faster than others is because they have an abundance of nucleus and blah blah blah. I don't want to go into details. And that's when I was like, oh, I'm gonna call it nucleus overload. And I was like, I gotta spread the good news. I gotta tell everybody, stop. It's okay to train every day. It's okay to, as long as you recover and you don't go too high, things like that. So that's pretty much how how I stumbled upon nucleus overload. It's a long journey, man. It's like a 10-minute answer.
Yeah, like 7 minutes or so. But like also the success stories. I know that when you first came out with it, people must have been bombarding you like every day, right? Like they were messaging you, and I'm sure you saw testimonials, guaranteed.
Yeah.
Like even I did it myself, and it worked for sure. And I know for myself, like I was a climber when I was younger. I used to climb buildings every day for like 6 to 8 hours. And the first thing that happened when I started bodybuilding was my back and my forearms blew up. And I knew when I was listening to your videos, like, this shit can't be a coincidence. It's not possible that the two areas that I train every day, it just magically blew up. Like, it couldn't have been genetics. So that's one success story, but I'm sure tons of guys have contacted you, right?
There was, I mean, it's funny you mentioned that because that's what even gave me more conviction. Because at first, again, people were like, when I came out with the video, people were like, there's always the naysayer. They're like, man, this is bullshit. This is overtraining. That's why I called it overtraining. It was just
call it that at the time.
Yeah, I was being sarcastic. They're like, this is overtraining. This is not gonna work. You gotta let the muscle rest and blah blah blah. And at first I was like, hey, they have a point because that's what the magazines are saying. But I can't disregard the overwhelming evidence. And of course, a few months later, because some people actually were daredevils like you and I, they decided to implement it. Oh my God, I was getting messages. To this day, I'm still getting messages. They're like, man, I tried it on my calves. I tried this on my chest. I tried it on my biceps, my triceps. People making videos, showing me pictures, before and after pictures. They're like, man, this thing works. And I was like, I'll be surprised if it doesn't work, given the overwhelming, anecdotes, So, and then finally, again, the science caught up where they were like, hey, we heard about the Norwegian frequency.
Yeah, the Norwegian frequency, yeah.
They found out, hey, man, people that are training something every day or 5 times a week or more are getting more, the growth response is insane. And then, of course, now I understand why, because, again, I spent so much time studying. When I got those success messages, I started going deeper into the muscle, trying to figure out how the muscle grows, why it grows, so I could really see what was happening. And then that made it official, because now I know for a fact, I don't even care if the science rejects it. Because I know how muscles grow now, I know exactly why nucleus overload works. It's 1 + 1 = 2. It's literally based on how the body puts on muscle.
Exactly. Actually, we could talk about this all day, but I want to know specifically the muscle, the way it works. In your videos, you talk a lot about mTOR and how that's going to really help with the development. So can you just explain to the viewers, like in common terms, what exactly that is and how it helps them out?
So to understand mTOR, you have to understand, again, I'm speaking to subscribers now because I'm sure you already know how that works, but to understand mTOR, you have to understand what muscle is. Like, what is muscle, right? Because that's my philosophy when I want to learn something. I just look for the origin. Right. I figure if I know the origin of something, it's easy to know, how it goes up, how it goes down. You want to know economics, look at how it started. You want to understand politics, look how it started with cave fighting over rights and shit. So I did the boring thing nobody wants to do. I went to the library. I took the fucking boring biology books. We took those classes in high school, but we didn't pay attention. So I had to go back to chemistry, physics. I mean, I broke muscle down to the atoms, and everything made sense, right? So to understand mTOR, you have to understand the muscle, right? The muscle obviously is made of proteins. Proteins are amino acids put together, right? Simple. So the only difference is they have to be put together in a certain, combination. So if you put, if you take hair, or let's stick to muscle. Say you take a piece of your bicep, you put it under the microscope, you see that, proteins. And then if you zoom in, you see that's a bunch of amino acids, right? But they're put together in a certain sequence. It might be leucine first, and then arginine, and then tryptophan, and valine, whatever, right? You put them in a certain sequence, you have a different protein. If you switch it up, you get probably like eyes or nails or your hair or whatever. So your body, in order to build muscle, first has to grab amino acids and put them in a certain order in order for it to become protein, and then it puts it together. Now, that's broken down into 2 stages. transcription and translation, right? Again, to keep it simple, transcription is simply your body going to your DNA and reading what order those amino acids have to be in. So when people say, oh, that's the gene, the gene is simply the order in which the amino acids have to be put together, right? So the body has to go into the DNA, look at the specific gene or code that has the instructions for a bicep or, whatever, the protein that make a bicep. It has to take it out of the DNA. It has to go into the building site, the cytoplasm, and then it has to start putting the amino acids together. It reads the code and it goes, hey, we need valine. Next, we need arginine, and it just puts it together, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the building site where all this is taking place is called the ribosome, right? It's just it's like the assembly line, right? It just takes the code and it stamps the amino acids on it. That building site is obviously the most important thing, because you could have the code for how to make proteins, but if you don't have the assembly on where to build it, well, you're not going to build anything, right? Mm-hmm. So that building site is activated by mTOR. mTOR is what tells your body to start creating the ribosomes and things like that. So they found out that when you upregulate mTOR, when you activate mTOR, protein synthesis goes through the roof. Simply because the body already had the DNA. DNA is not going anywhere. It's always there. The instructions are always there. But if mTOR is not creating the building site, nothing is going to be put together, right? So I found out that mTOR activates and then leads to the building of the ribosome, which leads to the putting together of the bricks, which forms the protein. And when you train for too long, eventually, it's kind of like riding your car. Eventually, every car dies. The engine, right? Yeah, so mTOR becomes less and less efficient. It's kind of like your body trying to stop you from growing too much. And that's why people can go to the gym after years and notice no growth. It's not because their training is not working. They're increasing the weight, they're doing more volume, and they're like, yo, I'm just not growing like I used to. And then they find out that when they take a break and come back, not only they gain the muscle they lost, but they break the previous plateau. It's because mTOR is a virgin again, like I always say, Mm-hmm. So this is why mTOR is important in muscle building. It is the enzyme that creates the building site where the amino acids are put together to form muscle. All
right, cool. So now that the viewers know what it is, what are some ways of making it so that it has maximum effect on your muscle building? Like you said, taking time off, right? But I remember you commented in one of my videos that stretching under load can actually activate it. So can you talk more about that?
Okay, sure. So mTOR, what activates mTOR? mTOR, it's a good question, because if mTOR activates, protein synthesis, which is translation, all that stuff, what activates mTOR? Well, mTOR is activated by growth factors, right? So IGF-1, growth hormone, all these things, testosterone. And so if you increase the growth factors, you increase the activation of mTOR, right? mTOR is also activated by leucine, but that's a whole different subject. So the question now begins, the question now is, how do you increase the growth factors that increase mTOR? So I started researching, and scientists find out that eccentric training, negatives, increase mTOR, because they increase, the growth factors that are associated with, activating mTOR. And so they started going into detail, and they found out not just eccentrics, but stretching takes it to a whole different level, because stretching is really eccentrics. I mean, think about it. You stretching the muscle, it's like
basically
the extreme end of the eccentric. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And they've done so many studies on this, and where they found out if you put weighted stretching, if you do weighted stretching, the growth factor response leading to the mTOR response is elevated out of the water. It is way more than simply picking up a weight. So somebody doing heavy stretching, like like the cheap shrugs that Johnny Jackson was doing, which emulates kind of the type of training you do. Somebody who's doing heavy dumbbell flies. I mean, think about it. The best exercises for muscles are usually the ones that put it under
always the one with the stretch when you think about it. Like the pull-ups for stretching on the last, the dumbbell row, like all that stuff.
Exactly. The preacher curls that Larry Scott used to do. I mean,
right. Yeah.
You can drop the weight. It's a negative, and it's really a stretch. You got I mean, just name it, man. Almost every muscle, so pretty much mTOR is activated the most, because they looked at every different way to activate mTOR by training. Out of all the different types of training, stretching, heavy stretching, and negatives activates mTOR the most. Bar none. There's no competition.
Awesome. So what are like you do a lot of weight stretching in your training, right? Like you don't
Yeah,
just
yeah,
do it for one muscle group. Like you'll apply it to the whole body, right?
yeah, yeah.
So what are some of your favorite exercises for doing the stretch?
Okay, so for chest, it is by far heavy dumbbell flies, right? And if you think about it, back in the pumping iron days, the exercise was a staple,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
these guys had amazing chests. If you watch pumping iron, you see Arnold overstretching the crap out of his chest, and if you look in the back, everyone is also doing it. Today, people, I mean, I have nothing against machines. They have their role in bodybuilding. People doing the pack deck and all that. Well, you're getting a good squeeze, which is also good, but
Mm.
you're not getting that insane stretch,
Yeah, it's based off peak contraction mainly, because the tension's
Exactly.
over here, not right there. Yeah.
Exactly. So the muscle is not vulnerable. The muscle is most vulnerable, here. So for chest, it's obviously heavy dumbbell flies. And man, I had this argument with so many of my friends that love to bench press, but they had shitty chests. Right. My bench press sucked ass, but my chest was bigger than them. Right. Of course, I also had the nucleus overload thing going, but
Yeah, yeah.
when that started finally doing heavy flies, heavy dumbbell flies, because they were like, you know what, fuck this. I've been training for years. My chest still sucks. I'm benching three plates. Their chest took, came out. And I was like, hey man, your mTOR, your mTOR is being activated. So that's for chest. For lats, man, nothing beats the stretch you get from doing heavy weighted chin ups. Like it's insane. When you just hang down, you feel the stretch on your lats, right? So that's my favorite for lats. As far as back thickness, and the lower lats is again I don't like that. I don't like that exercise, but again, my back sucks, so I have to. Is the chest supported row?
Oh yeah.
That machine that where you lean on.
Yeah, yeah. That one where you.
Yeah, yeah. You kind of like take it off, and then it just stretches. What me and Mark used to do is I used to take the weight off, and then he used to push it down. He used to
Oh,
push down on the things. He used to just stretch, my lats coming down this way. And I mean, we used to be sore for like 4 or 5 days after this. Like walking around like this and
yeah.
shit. So that's for back. For bicep again, incline dumbbell curls or preacher curls. Triceps. Oh my god, I love that exercise. Overhead dumbbell extensions. One arm or two arms, whatever. Doing it this way or doing it that way. That just hits it. Skull crushers. You don't get
Well,
that maximum.
unless you go behind the head,
Exactly.
then it's
Unless you go like this.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And for legs, again, you gotta do sissy squats. It's the best way to stretch the quads. But I hate doing sissy squats, because it just But again, if you want a good exercise to stretch your quads, you gotta do sissy squats or hack squats. But at the bottom, you gotta come in on your
Yeah,
heels.
yeah, yeah.
It's funny. Tom Plass used to love that, and I mean, look at his quads.
Hmm.
So and hamstrings, of course, stiff leg deadlifts. So that's it. That's my traps. Number one is the rack pull. Number one is the rack pull. I mean, nothing stretches my traps like the rack pull. But again, because it was so good, I overdid it, and I kind of snapped my shit up back
Yeah.
in 2012, I believe, on top of my deadlift injury. So now I every time I try to do rack pulls, it's
Okay,
like
but
it comes back.
but what happened with that, man? Because I remember you made a video. It was called Migan Pulls, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's how you got injured.
Yeah, well, that's how I started snapping it up because again,
Okay.
when you getting strong at an exercise, you don't give a shit about injury. You like, man,
Yeah, because you're putting up. Yeah, yeah.
I wasn't warming up. I mean, like you advise your subscribers to like not snap this shit up. Be careful. I didn't. Back then it was 2012. I mean, I didn't care. So I was just doing it. My traps were sore finally. They were starting to grow. And then I started snapping shit because I wasn't warming up. Let's be honest. When you're doing rack pulls, you hate warming up with one plate on each
Oh
side
yeah,
because
of
it's like
course,
crap.
man. Yeah, yeah. It's
So,
boring,
like,
You want to lift the heavy weight.
yeah, yeah. So I would go straight to three plates, and and then it was I loved it until I pulled something right. But again, it wasn't bad. Your body gives you a warning. It's like, dude, you
Okay.
pulled some shit. Be careful. I didn't care. I moved on to deadlifts, and that's when I snapped my shit up. I was doing deadlifts with horrible form. Again, it's like you're telling people, don't let your strength. You're stronger than just because you're able to start off with three plates. Don't start off with three plates.
Yeah,
Warm up for
for sure.
And I snapped added on top of the rack pull injury. And to this day, the moment I go
Yo, you're cutting off, man.
to two or three plates,
Yo, Meekin, can you hear me?
can you hear me?
Yeah, it's just the screen's all laggy now.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Okay, we're good. Sorry, go on. You were saying
Can you
deadlifts, rack pulls.
yeah. So yeah, so now no matter what I do, the moment I put 2 plates on the barbell, I can't do a bent over row or a rack pull or shrug. Like my lower back is done. The moment I bend over. So I should have been more careful because now I can't do a great exercise. There's no one exercise for traps.
Yeah, for sure. Well, again, I think it's the best exercise because it allows you to get the best stretch possible. And
Hmm.
like I always said this, like you proved it. If farmer walks build the traps through nothing but stretch, then it proves that by definition, rack pulls do the same thing.
Yeah,
Undebatable. It's fact.
undebatable,
And if you do a
undebatable.
farmer walk, like people are using what, 200-pound dumbbells each
Hmm.
hand, so like 400 pounds of stretch. Well, imagine you got 800, 900, 1,000. I mean, surely the benefits are going to be more than having 200-pound dumbbells in your hand, right?
Of course, yeah, yeah. Because when I looked at the anatomy of every single muscle, I looked at I geeked out. The traps, I looked at the evolution of human muscles just
Hmm.
to see their purpose, and the traps evolved to stabilize, the
Yeah,
scapula to keep the
exactly.
arms attached to your body. When I read that years ago, I was like, that makes so much sense. Your traps evolved to stabilize the shoulder girdle. Why are you holding on to heavy shit? Why is it that? Because back then I didn't understand why deadlifts before I learned about eccentrics and stretching. I was like, why do deadlifts grow traps?
Hmm.
There's no squeezing. There's no, they tell us squeeze,
Exactly.
hold it at the top. I was like, deadlifts, they pick the shit up and put it down. All you see is veins on their neck, trying to like hold the weight. And then same thing with farmer walks. You see somebody doing farmer walks, traps are short. So I was like, what the hell? Until I ran into the bird study,
Yeah,
in
the avian stretch. That's a
the avian
yeah,
stretch.
that's crazy.
And that's like the biggest reported growth in muscle in the animal kingdom, bar none, right? And there was no contraction. There is zero contraction in the avian bird studies. It is just heavy weights, pretty much farmer walks on a poor bird,
Yeah,
and 400% increase in muscle mass. I was like, man, come on. Now I'm seeing it in birds, in humans, in,
yeah.
in the wheelbarrow motherfuckers from Africa. They were not shrugging the wheelbarrow, they were just. So stretching, you get way more out of stretching exercise than you do out of concentrics and squeezing. I'm not saying that they're useless. I mean, obviously you're also, contracting at the top. But if you had to pick, if you were short on time, stretching exercises or not.
I agree with you 100%, man. So, like, what are some guidelines of implementing the stretching? Because I know there's different approaches. Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
the dog crap way, which is like you finish a set and then you stretch for like 30,
Yeah.
60 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's like just a static way, like rack pulls and farmer walks. So, like, what are your preferred methods of introducing stretching into the program?
Okay, good question. All right, so that reminds me of another research little thing campaign that I had started. When I was always looking for ways to maximize hypertrophy naturally, of course. So I always wanted to see extreme cases of hypertrophy,
Hmm.
so I could see, okay, well, this is extreme, obviously, so it can be by luck. So let me see what they were doing, and I looked at natural trainers, and then I was like, you know what? Since it is so hard to tell if people are natural or enhanced, well, back then to me it was hard. Now obviously it's easy to tell, but
Yeah.
back then I was like, well, since it's hard to find the line between the people that are called like mid enhanced, they're right in between, so you can't really tell. You're like, man, you kind of look natty, but you kind of whatever. I didn't want to put them into my study pool because they were gonna mess up the observations. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna look at the people who are 100% on steroids, right?
Hmm.
Then I'm gonna look at the ones who implemented stretching types of training into the routine and got crazy results from it. Because if you take somebody who's already on steroids, is an Olympic, I mean, is an elite IFBB pro, is like has some of the best genetics in the world, and then you see them make progress after they already peaked. Something is, you can't say steroids because they were
Yeah,
already on
exactly.
steroids.
Yeah.
You can't say genetics, they already had good genetics. So it has to be something that they did in the training. So I started looking at dog crap. I started looking at the Dorian Yates style of training. People forget Dorian Yates was heavy on stretching, man. Negatives were everything for him. He would hold the negative, stretch, bring it back. So I looked at all the people who made insane gains when they started doing stretch training after they're already elite bodybuilders. So that allowed me to just cancel out the effects of steroids or genetics and things like that. And I found out about dog crap training, and I found out about FST7, faster stretch training, right?
Hmm.
And those are the two uh, training methodologies that when those bodybuilders started doing it, they really saw quick gains, right? And what do they have in common? You know, again, I didn't pick those two. I picked almost everything, and then I found out that those two were the ones that made people blow up. Jay Cutler started doing FST7. His last blew up when he was trying to compete with Ronnie Coleman. When Phil Heath had a weak back and he started doing FST7, his back took off. He already had good genetics, so you can't say, "Oh, it's genetics." If that was genetics, he would have had that result in the first 2 years of training. And I saw the people that did dog crap training, kind of like David Henry, things like that. And I was like, oh, okay. Out of all the elite training styles or methodologies, you get the biggest results from those two, FST7 or dog crap. So I implemented those. I did dog crap back in 2013, I believe, and I also did FST7. I got the most results, believe it or not, from FST7. Okay. Now, the reason I also now I know why is because of the volume also. With FST7, you're getting the stretch and you're getting the volume. And we know volume is like key in
yeah, for sure.
So I would, if I had to recommend, I would say, do something along the lines of FST7. You don't have to copy it 100% because then again, these people, are in hand, so they can kind of they can handle a volume. But do something along the lines of FST7, which is what? Which is you pump the muscle first to make the fascia, loose or whatever, whether it's true or not, who cares? If it works, it works. And then you start doing the stretching while the muscle is already pumped. So you lower your risk of injuries and things like that. And you don't have to use as much weight as dog crap training. Now, I combine all that shit together. I combined it together. I was like, you know what? I don't want to miss out on the benefits of each. I put it together. And what I came up with was me and my friends joke around. I never really made a video on it yet because I'm still waiting until I have enough people that did it and have results. I call it pump, stretch, pump, right? Which is you start with a heavy exercise. Right? Obviously, you warm up, you do a heavy exercise. So you got your strength requirements out of the way, right? Because you need a lot of sets to increase strength. The muscle is already warmed up. And now you move on to a pumping exercise. Just to kind of put the blood in the muscle in case you didn't warm up properly, and then you go into a stretching exercise. So that's kind of like the FST7 where the muscle is pumped and then you start to stretch it and things like that. And then you can wrap it up with a pump exercise again. But that again, that's just to fuck around. It's not something that I establish parameters for. It's just pump, stretch, pump, pump so that the muscle doesn't get injured when you stretch it up, and then pump it again just to fill it with blood and then go home. You could superset it, you could triset it, whatever, just whatever works for you, Okay. But that's what I'm experimenting on now, in case people.
But it's like how long you've been trying this for?
Well, I first started this for when I wanted to grow my lats again. That was I believe I believe it was also 2013, and I got phenomenal results from that. I mean, it's the only time, when you train your legs, you saw for like 4 or 5 days, right? I mean, if you haven't trained your legs in a long time, it's the only time I trained my back while I was already training my back, right? So I shouldn't really get a lot of DOMs, but I got soreness for 4 to 5 days every time I did that kind of workout. Even though my back was already, because normally when you get DOMs, you shouldn't keep getting DOMs every single time.
Yeah, obviously, for sure.
Every time I did that, my back, I mean, that feeling you get the next day after you had a good back workout and you just feel like you have the imaginary lat syndrome?
Yeah, for sure.
I had that for like 4 to 5 days every time I did that workout. So then Hansa took that and applied it to his chest. The heavy stretching and then the same thing. Chest blew up. My uncle tried it. Same thing. All the guinea pigs, here did it. And it worked great. Worked great. Right now I'm using it for triceps. And again, once my back recovers, I want to do it for traps. But I'm still waiting for that to recover. But so far, every muscle I did it on, if that's your question, every muscle I did it on got good results, which is my back, my triceps. I didn't do it for my legs because I was a little bitch. But yeah, my back, my triceps. I did it for biceps for a little while. The problem with me is I'm always experimenting, so I
sometimes you like to move around a lot.
Sure. Yeah, I move around, which is bad, but then again, that's how you stumble.
Yeah, that's how you learn, obviously. But a lot of people are wondering about your gains. I mean, because since you weren't like posting too frequently, I didn't know what was going on exactly. Because I know you had school stuff, and obviously you're busy with your kids. So like, how have your gains been? Like, are they still up to par or what?
Well, in the last what, like, what's the time frame?
Let's say last 3 to 4 months about.
Last 3 to 4 months, it's been up and down. It's been up and down. I'll be honest with you right now. It's been up and down because well, again, if I had to put on a graph, it's still going up. It's just the slope is not as it used to be. Why? Because obviously my appetite thing is even worse, right?
Like in what
I'm
way?
still my appetite problem. Like I still struggle with my appetite. Like I people don't believe me, but I don't eat enough fucking calories.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean my calories are low as hell. I just want to tell people that they think I'm lying. I'm like I have no reason to lie. I'm not selling anything, but whatever. So that obviously is hurting my gains. But the reason I'm still growing somewhat is because I believe that if you have a problem that you're having a hard time, fixing, try to work around it until you have time to fix it, right?
Yeah.
So luckily, because I spent so much time researching muscle growth, I found out ways that you can make the body grow on suboptimal, calories,
Hmm.
and I have videos coming up. I could, if we have time, I'll talk about it. But that's what's helped me, keep the growth, still up. Not as high as I want it to be, but still up.
Right.
I mean, why? Because I train now. When school is in session, oh my God, I probably can go like an entire week and only have 1 or 2 workouts. When school is not in session, then I'm so excited I could go back to the gym and not worry about the kid or school or whatever that I overtrain. I train like a madman. So you have this, up, down, up, down, up, down. So my gains have been, again, overall, it's going up, but it's not going up as fast as it would if I was eating right and I was training more,
Okay.
more
And what
frequently.
what about your body measurements? Like a lot of people are curious about your arm size, leg size, all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. The last time I did measurements was well, for my arms I did it recently because I was trying to do the road to 20 inches, which
Okay.
is again I know it's probably not gonna happen anytime soon, but I like to set goals that are bigger than if I want 18-inch arms, I would always go for 20,
Yeah,
hoping
yeah,
that fuck up I get 19, whatever.
yeah.
So when I measured, they were like, what? If I'm not pumped because of my bicep peak, there's 17 point something. I got to pull it up on my Excel. They're like they're trying to get up to 18. When I'm pumped, my arms are big as hell. Like I mean, because I have a bicep peak, so and then I also do the long head of the triceps a lot, so it creates that illusion. So because of the way we take the measurements, my long head and my peak, you know,
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, my arms go over 18. So obviously the highest would be over 18. But again, that's when I'm pumped. I don't like measuring when I'm pumped because come on, when you pump, you got water
Yeah,
in
it,
there.
it screws up everything, honestly.
Yeah. So cold 17.5.6. I don't know. I have to measure again. My legs. Damn. I actually have to get back with you on those numbers. I have to because I have them on Excel, but because I haven't been training consistently, I fucking stopped looking at it.
Okay, okay, fair
I used
enough.
to have a spreadsheet where I would actually put the numbers every 4 weeks, and I will actually make them. I will actually create a graph, so it will show me if the slope was increasing. That's how I know if my gains are increasing or going down, and then I will take the average of all that to see what's the average growth of all my muscles combined. And but again, I stopped tracking that because when you're not following your program the way you should, and there's no reason to put the numbers in because it's going to give you wrong information. It's going to tell you, hey, you're only gaining X inch on this program, and really you're not following the program.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I would say my gains are going to be consistent once I'm done with school because then I'll have nothing to get in the way of training or eating or things like that. One thing I have to measure though is my traps. How do you measure your traps? Like, what do you use to measure
I,
your traps?
I mean, what I do is I do the shoulder circumference. So you just go all around like this, and it's kind of gonna catch your traps at the same time. Or you could just measure the
Like
neck. Listen, you can
the
measure the
shoulders.
neck too. You just go like this, and you go right under, all around. And that's a
I
good
got
way to get a measurement right
I
there.
got a puny neck. It's probably like 16 or 17. Like I
Your
have no idea.
neck.
Yeah, my neck is puny as hell. It's like 16 or 17.
But the thing is, it grows very fast. You'd be very surprised. Like
I used to have the neck harness. You remember?
the
I used
neck
to.
harness is amazing, honestly.
Yeah. But you
But
know what I did? I'm not
yeah,
as disciplined as you. I bought the neck harness again years ago when I was actually made videos when I first bought it. I can't remember the year, but at least 3 years ago. And I didn't want to do the side. That's another advice I have for people. Is that you got to be balanced.
hmm.
I only did,
Oh,
the
you only
fucking.
did the extensions?
I only did the fucking blowjob, right?
Okay.
So I only did it this
Yeah, yeah.
way, and I didn't. Again, back then I didn't really care about anatomy and all that shit. I just fucking did it because I heard that it gave you thick traps. Remember, anything that has the word traps in it, I'm interested. I found out, hey, you big traps by doing neck, So I was doing this shit, but I never did the side. I was like, man, that's boring as hell, right? Who wants to fucking do this? And I got the mean neck pain. I had, because it was an imbalance where I couldn't sleep at night because, you gotta do the whole thing. You can't just do extensions without doing, this and this. And I mean, I don't know if you do all angles. I'm sure you probably do all angles.
I do all three. I do the flexion, I do the extension, I even do the side bends. Sometimes I even do twisting with the band,
Yeah, you smart. You smart. I didn't do. There's even videos of me using the silateral machine for my neck. Back in 2013.
Okay.
Well, I was the silateral machine.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, I'll put my head underneath and I just do this, whatever. I was only doing this motion. I wasn't doing, coming down, and I was doing the sides, and they gave me just this bad imbalance, and I was like, man, fuck this shit. So
yeah, but also I think it's because you probably got forward head posture too. Because when all you do is extensions, you're bringing your head forward,
Yeah.
So you got to do flexion to bring it back in.
To bring it back in, yeah.
And then the sides, I mean, if one side is more overdeveloped, you're gonna be like this. And over time,
Yeah. I found that out later, like when I started, because again I was doing it for traps. I didn't give a shit about neck at the time. It's later on I found out, no man, you got to do every angle, and I was like, oh man, all right. Yeah. I still have it actually. It's buried somewhere.
Well, look, Migan, I can tell you, like straight on, just man to man, that the neck training is gonna change your life forever. Like I strongly believe that it enhances the nuclei in your traps and your upper back. Because it's both connected to your neck. So I think that if you do a lot of neck work, very, very high volume, like for me, I'll do 4 sets of 25 from the front, the back, and the sides. I feel like it gives you crazy benefits in your yoke.
Of course, no, 100%. That's the reason why I bought it. Because again, I was studying traps like a madman. Anything that has to do with traps, I've studied it. I was obsessed with it, right? And then I found out that people that played, people that did football and wrestling had like huge traps when they would train their neck. They would train their neck and have big traps as a result. And then I did the typical, Migan investigation, and I found out, oh shit, they're connected. When you train your neck, for some reason your upper back and your traps, because again they're connected, get activated. I met wrestlers that used to do the bridge.
Yeah, the bridge.
And they had a thick neck and thick traps. I had a friend that used to play football, and they used to do a lot of neck work because of concussion and things like that. And he would say that the next day, not just his neck, but his traps used to be sore. So that's when I was like, fuck that. I went online, I bought it, and then sure enough, the first time I did it, my neck and my traps were sore. So I believe it 100%. I just got to get off my ass and start doing those things again. Man, I just don't know how you find the motivation to do the side and shit.
Man,
I guess you got to want it bad, right?
Yeah, but if you do it, do you do it at home or you do it at the gym? Because that's the difference right there.
Well, I used to do it here, but that first week when I was so obsessed with it, I used to also do it at the gym with the plates. I used to put a place on my forehead.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll tell you, want motivation, you got to do it at the gym. Because if you're at home, you're not going to want to attach it to a door or something like that. You're not going to do it. So bring the harness to the gym. Attach it to a power rack. Give yourself no choice. Or do it at the end of cardio. Let's say you got to go in, you got to hit some cardio or some mobility. I mean, just hit the neck with it. It's a done deal.
Yeah. You motivating me, man. I'm gonna start doing it because again, it's there. It's just
it's totally worth it. And also because the cheek genetics, you want the neck to go past,
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
exactly.
I got the face genetics, so you definitely want to create that illusion, man. You're right. You're a smart motherfucker, man. I like that.
That's it. Illusion strategies. That's what's up. So, anyway, so we talked about a lot of good stuff here. I want to talk about muscle weaknesses and plateaus and how you deal with them. Now, obviously, nucleus overload is probably like the #1 way of doing that. But what other tips could you give for guys who have plateaus? Like let's say you have a lagging chest, lagging back, whatever.
All right. So again, I'm always going to go back to how muscles grow because that just gives you the answer right there, right? So if you have a plateau, again, you're talking about hypertrophy, not strength, right?
Yeah. Right now, I'm talking about hypertrophy.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So if you have a plateau in hypertrophy, you got to find out in which of the 3 ingredients you lacking. Again, what are the ingredients for hypertrophy? Again, I made videos about that. You need amino acids. Again, you got to put them together. You need the growth factors that have to go and read the genetic code. The growth factors, by the way, are the ones who actually start the whole, read the code and then translate it. And then you need energy, which is the money to finance the building project, right? So amino acids, growth factors, and then ATP, energy, right? To use the house analogy, amino acids are the bricks, The growth factors are like the workers and the architect and all that stuff. And then the ATP is the money. You got to pay the motherfuckers, right? So I would tell people every single plateau in hypertrophy, every single plateau is related to a deficiency in one of those three. Mm-hmm. Every plateau, either you're not getting enough food, because people forget, if you're 170 pounds and then you train and you went up to 180 or 190 pounds, it requires more money to maintain the house. Exactly. The bigger your house, the bigger your house, the more money you need to keep it intact or to make it even bigger, right? The bigger your car, the more fuel it burns, right? So people forget that they're getting bigger and stronger, so they're doing more volume, more intensity without knowing it, but they're still eating the same. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, dude, you can't keep paying the workers the same amount of money and expect them to do more work. They're just gonna look at you and be like, that's my deal. So either it's an ATP problem, they're not getting enough energy because they forget that they're big as hell, so they require more, or it's an amino acid problem. And the reason why I tell amino acid problem, even though most people get enough protein, we gotta try to figure out where the protein is going. Because again, I did the math and I found out you need 3 grams of protein extra synthesized a day in order to build a pound of muscle every month, right? Mm-hmm. So think about it. A pound of muscle is like 453 grams of muscle, right? So when you do the math, you divide it by 30, and then you find out that muscle is like, let's say 20% protein. You end up with 3 grams of protein every day, right? So after your body's done maintaining its bodily functions, renewing your cells, all it needs is an extra 3 grams. Just think about it, an extra 3 grams of protein a day to go into muscle building. If that happens, you're going to put on a pound of muscle every single month. It's a fact. It's math. It's 1 + 1 = 2. There's no, again, assuming that your body puts on muscle at a linear rate, right? So I tell most people, well, if you're not growing, but you got to ask yourself, where's those amino acids going? Because everybody's eating enough protein. People are eating 100 grams, 200 grams, 300 grams. So it's not that you're not getting enough protein. Your body does not need 300 grams of protein to maintain your current size. So you can't tell me that you're not getting enough protein. You're getting enough protein. It's just that the 3 grams that should go into muscle building are not going into muscle building. Mm-hmm. They're going somewhere. Either they're being used for energy. So I tell people, well, also try to find out where those amino acids are going, because obviously you're just wasting your money, right? Now, again, if you're not getting enough ATP that I talked about earlier, your amino acids are going to be used for protein breakdown. People forget that the liver's number 1 source of energy is actually protein. It's not carbs. The liver cannot use carbs for energy. It sends carbs, glucose, to the brain. It cannot use glucose for its own energy. The liver's number 1 macronutrient for energy is actually protein. A lot of people don't know this. And the liver, we all know the liver is one of the most metabolically active organs, right? So again, when you're training and you're eating all this food and all these supplements, all that, your liver is working overtime. It's burning a lot of your protein, right? And it's a lot. If you actually do the math, if you burn 2,000 calories a day, your liver takes 20 to 27% of those calories. You divide that by 4. That's a lot of protein. So I tell them, all right, try to see where your protein is going, right? Try to see if your body is absorbing that protein, right? Are you digesting the protein well? I mean, you could be eating 200 grams of protein. If you're not digesting it well, you're just going to shit that shit out, right? So I tell them, try to figure out where your protein is going based on, if you're getting enough, try to make sure you're getting enough enzymes, or, your digestion is optimal, whatever. So now let's assume that your ATP is good. You got enough calories, you got enough protein, and you're still plateauing, which I doubt it, because usually the issue is there. Look at your growth factors, because that's the third ingredient. Are you training frequently? And a lot of people fuck up on that, man. I tell you, you're reaching a plateau and assuming you have enough protein, enough calories, how frequently are you hitting that muscle? Because again, that's what decides the frequency of the growth factors being released into the blood cell. Mm-hmm. You train your chest once a week, I don't give a fuck. You're releasing growth factors. I mean, IGF-1 has like a mechanical growth factor, which comes from IGF-1. And it's one of the most important, growth factors for hypertrophy. It has like a 24-hour half-life, right? So after like 24 hours, most of the mechanical growth factor you got from your workout is gone. That's one of the reasons why protein synthesis in people that are trained doesn't last past a day. It's because they find out that mechanical growth factor goes into the bloodstream, and after like a day, it's gone. Some people, it's like 16 hours. It's done. So if you're a beginner, you can get away with that because the mechanical growth factor stays in your blood longer. But if you've been lifting for a long time, you gotta train more frequently, because now once a week or twice a week, your body can't handle that shit. You know what I mean? So I tell people, conclusion, look at one of those 3 things. Are you getting enough energy? If yes, is your protein being utilized? And if yes, are you stimulating that muscle enough? I guarantee you 10 out of 10 times, not 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 times, the answer is in one of those factors. Either you're not eating enough, your protein is not being utilized well because you're not, you're not that, digesting it well or whatever. Try to look at how often you fart and things like that. That's a sign.
Okay.
And last is you're not getting enough frequency. You're not stimulating those growth factors.
Okay, so I got two questions for you then. One is about the signs, right? Like you said, farting is one of the signs, but like, how do you know if you're digesting the protein?
Well, again, the number one sign is, again, farting, right? Farting a lot. People think it's just normal. That's actually not normal. If you're farting a lot, and assuming you're not eating a lot of fiber, if you're eating fiber, then yeah, okay, that makes sense because the bacteria is digesting the fiber, right? But if you're not eating a lot of fiber, which is the case for most people that bodybuild, they're not eating a lot of fiber, but you're still farting, it's the protein. Because what is farting? What is farting? The bacteria are eating the shit that was not really digested, right? And then that fart, it's actually the bacteria farting that makes you fart. People, most people don't know this. They think, oh, I'm farting. No, the bacteria inside your tract just ate something, either fiber or protein that was undigested, and they farted, and then you just release that shit.
Okay. So ideally, a guy shouldn't be farting all the fucking time, right?
Yeah, that's not normal. People think it's like if you're eating fiber, it's normal because you can't digest fiber. There's nothing you can do. But if you're eating high protein and you're farting a lot from the protein, it's the bacteria is eating that leftover protein. Or you lactose intolerant or something like that. It always comes down to something that hasn't been digested. That's why if you lactose intolerant and you drink a lot of milk, you fart a lot. Why? Because lactose intolerant means you cannot digest lactose, so the bacteria digest it for you, and therefore.
Okay. So, all right. So it's like the same type of logic with the lactose, but being applied to the protein type of deal.
To the protein, yeah. That's why my farting went down when I started taking enzymes. The protein digesting enzymes in pineapple, in papaya, or you could just buy the pills, bromelain. And I would take that each time I took protein, and that's one of the reasons why I could eat low calories, but my body would utilize my my nutrients more efficiently because I take almost all my meals with protein digesting enzymes and probiotics.
Okay, and you're like a big believer of that, the probiotics and the enzymes?
Oh, hell yeah. Because, I mean, the foods we eat, and I think, man, we don't eat fermented foods like our ancestors did, man. Like, we don't eat sauerkraut, we don't eat those fermented foods anymore. So, our gut health is not as optimal as it used to be, So that's why we eat protein and we farting, I really believe it. And it's one thing that you could actually see the change within a week. I love supplements where you can literally tell if they're working or not within a week or two. You know what I mean? Okay. And when you take probiotics or enzymes, without changing your diet, you just add them, you will notice a difference. That's what happened with me and enzymes. I'm skeptical like a motherfucker. I'm cheap.
Yeah.
I hate wasting my money. So when I took those enzymes, the reason why I still take them to this day is because they work so well. When I actually forget to take my enzymes for like a week or two, I notice the changes. I'm farting on my ass. My poops are painful as hell, whatever. But when I take the enzymes, I could even cut down on my fiber and still have normal poops.
Okay. So, like, which ones would you recommend again? I know you said it just now.
For protein, you want anything that has protease. So protease, right? Protease. So that's the top two are bromelain from pineapple and the papaya one. I forgot what it's called, but just Google protease. I just know the top two is pineapple and papaya. Again, you can eat those fruits, or you could just get the extracts. It's always cheaper to just get the fruits, because then you're getting a bunch of other minerals and vitamins. But look into bromelain, and the second one, man, I forgot what it's called, but it's from papaya. Bromelain is from pineapple, and the second one is from papaya.
Okay, cool. So yeah, my second question is about the frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know, like, I'm a big believer of full body, and you too, you've been experimenting with that for a long time. So like, what's your preferred type of training system? Like, are you more full body every 48 hours, like every day? Like, what's the deal?
Full body to the day that I die. Full body changed again, most people don't know this, my frame, right? I was 142 pounds. I will never forget that number because it was embarrassing, right?
Okay.
I was a 19-year-old man. You're a man at 19, 142 pounds, right? Which was pathetic, right? And I was still skinny fat with the cheeks and the belly, but the skinny arms. I was like, man, like, fuck the gods, right?
Dude, I saw your picture, like, when you were a kid with the cake and stuff. Like, holy fuck, man. Dude, that picture, man.
Dude, now you see why I was such an angry motherfucker as a kid, man. I was like,
I'm not gonna lie. When I saw that picture, I fucking burst out laughing. I have to be honest with you.
That's how I know you my boy, man, because all my friends, when they saw that, they couldn't
Dude,
hold it in, man. They
it
were
was
like, dude, that
fucking
was
hilarious, man.
people try to understand why I have this passion to like fucking get better because when you grew up like that, man, I used to get no ass, no nothing, man. That's what made me a fucking, like, dude, you just gotta learn and grow as a person. But yeah, so I was 142 pounds when I was 19 years old, right?
Mm.
And I have pictures of that. If people that always want proof. And to me, that was lame because again, I lost the weight playing basketball and things like that. I was starving myself, all that shit, riding my bicycle all day, just trying to lose the fat. But then the problem is when you skinny fat and you lose fat, you also lose those arms that are already skinny. So I was just a fucking twig. And I started bodybuilding. Long story short, the heaviest I got was like I was in the 160s. That's just so 20 pounds, 20 some pounds, right? And I was doing splits because that's what everybody else was doing, right? You go to the magazine, splits. I was just doing splits. And I noticed that I could never break 168 pounds. Again, that number I'll never forget because that's the number that whenever I reached that number, if I kept increasing my calories, no matter what, I would get fat as hell. Because again, you never lose that stomach and the
Right.
cheeks, right? So, and I still have videos of when I kept complaining, like, man, every time I hit 169 or 170, I try to increase my cardio, but when I increase my cardio, I lose muscle mass. Like, what do I do? Until I discovered full body workouts by pure accident. Again, people forget the story behind how I discovered full body workouts. I went to France to visit my family, came, and I couldn't train for 2 weeks. Came back, and I was like, man, I got a lot of catching up to do. So let me just do everything in one day, to try to like make up, the missed workouts. I went to the gym and I did full body workout, right? I was like, man, this shit is hard as hell, right? Because that was my first time ever doing it. I did it for a week, but I already noticed the changes in like how I felt. Like I was getting stronger. Mind you, this is a week. I was getting stronger at the lifts that I was doing when I think. But then I was like, you know what? Maybe it's because I took a break and came back, the whole mTOR thing. I was like, all right, let me just keep this going. So I did it for a month. Long story short, I put on weight so fast. I went to 170, 175. In fact, my callback loading videos where I have my shirt off, I'm lean as hell. I was actually 175. So mind you, I couldn't break 168 on splits without getting fat as hell. And at this stage, I was 175 and I still had abs,
Okay.
right? So I was like, you know what? I might actually keep doing this full body workout things, right? And when it started, again, I went up to 185, 190, 195, right? The heaviest I got where I still saw my abs and I have videos on YouTube was 197. And I still have my upper abs. So explain to me how I went from 165 to 168, right? All the way, which is, almost like 20, 27 pounds, whatever, almost 30 pounds. And it happened in 6 months. Whereas I've been training for a long fucking time on splits and could never get that big. Mind you, my caloric intake didn't increase that much, right? And even if it did, that's not enough to explain the growth response in in a short little time. The main change was the full body workout. So then I started going into the Sherlock Sword mode, right? I was like, I got to start researching this shit. Started researching full body workouts, and I found out in Hollywood when they're trying to make somebody big, quickly, without trying to use too many steroids, because we know they use steroids, they put them on full body workouts. Football players, when they're trying to get big, during the off season, but they don't have a lot of time to train because they also have to practice football, they do full body workouts. I was looking at all the different disciplines that implemented that. So I was like, you know what? Let me see the science behind it, and that's when I started again, looking at why the body grows, and I found out that okay, the reason why full body workout works so well is because number one, you have the frequency element, and in case people don't know, if two people identical, same genetics, same everything, train with the same amount of volume, let's say 20 sets per week for chest. One person does 20 sets in one day, the other person does 20 sets split up in 3 days. The one that has the high frequency builds more muscle. So the frequency is there because the growth factors are being stimulated 3 times a week as opposed to once a week in that specific muscle. The second reason is because of the cortisol response. A lot of people don't know this, but cortisol is actually more correlated with growth than growth hormone, IGF-1, and testosterone. What does that tell you? Cortisol is the stress hormone. The more stress you put on the organism, the bigger the incentive for the organism to grow. It's just common sense, Splits, yeah, if you're a noob, of course you're gonna have a lot of a big stress response. But you've been training for a long time, going to the gym and doing chest, there's no fucking stress, man. Like, I mean, they've actually seen this, When you go to the gym and you do full body, you doing chest, you're doing back, you're doing legs, you're doing shoulders, you're doing arms, traps. the stress response is insane.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you don't quickly adapt to that. That's why you constantly keep growing on full body workouts. It takes a while to adapt because even when you do adapt, you increase the weight, you increase the volume. So the cortisol response is always bigger in full body workouts. And the third thing is the nitrogen retention is actually bigger when you do full body workouts. So if you eat 100 grams of protein a day and you're doing chest, you did chest today, right? Well, guess what? Most of that protein is gonna go to your chest, right? Obviously, when I say most of it, it's a bigger percentage, you know. But when you go to the gym and you do chest, back, shoulders, arms, legs, whatever, and you eat 100 grams of protein, a lot of it gets utilized.
Mm-hmm.
So the nitrogen retention is higher, So you have all these factors. You have the frequency, the stress response, the protein retention and things like that. You put all that together, the body grows, man. I don't know a single person that did full body workouts and didn't grow. I mean, assuming they ate well and all that shit.
Yeah. Well, what gets to me is when I hear people saying that it's only for beginners. Because to me, that is like total bullshit. Like, even if you look at the old school bodybuilders, these guys were all doing full body and they made crazy gains. And like, you got guys like you and myself who've been in this for a long time, still doing full body, still making gains. So it makes no sense to say that it's only for beginners. Like, I think it's because people looking at like these bullshit minimalist programs, like starting strength, fucking, you know those programs where it's like 5x5, just some basic shit. I think that's why people give it a bad name.
That's why they give it a bad name. And I always tell people that it takes 4 things to give me conviction, right? Number one, I need to see it in bro science. I need to hear stories. I need to see it happen with my own eyes. Number 2, I need to see like a lot of research backing it up, right? That's when I'm like, okay, bro science and science come together. Right. People don't know that there's actually a 3rd and 4th level. The 3rd level is when I try it on my own body and I see results. Now I'm like, okay, I'm hearing the stories. I'm seeing it with my own eyes. The science is backing it up. Enough studies, because I don't believe in just 1 or 2 studies. Third thing is I'm applying it and I'm seeing results. And the 4th and final one is when somebody else that has no incentive to bullshit me tries it and it also works. That's when I'm like, fuck you, this is the Bible now. And full body workouts meets all criteria, right? I've seen people do it and get swole after they've been training for a long time. Science has shown that full body workouts, is more significant. You get a more significant response from full body workout than you get from splits. I mean, you still don't go from splits. Don't get me wrong. I don't hate splits. It's just I want efficiency. Right. I want to do and it worked on my body. Right now I'm 222 pounds. Again, this is somebody that was 140 to 220. That's goddamn 80 pounds, right? Now, how many people can put? Yeah. Obviously, I got body fat on me, but how many people can put on 80 pounds in that such a short period of time? And come on, full body changed my fucking life, right? And then also everyone else that tried it is also seeing results. So I tell people, no, even the studies were done on trained people. They were done on trained men. Mm-hmm. They were not done on beginners. They were done on trained men. And it's common sense, man. Come on, you mean to tell me that you're gonna train your back with 20 sets once a week? I'm gonna train my back with 20 sets, split up into 3 different workouts in that same week. So check this out. I train that muscle 3 times a week, and I get to rest 4 days. Right? Let's say I'm doing, every other day, whatever, right? Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I get to train it 3 times and rest 4 days in 1 week. And we know recovery is like where you should grow. You train that shit once, but then you only get like 2 days of rest because on Tuesday you're training something else, Wednesday you're training something else. I mean, no, yeah, people say it's a different muscle. Number one, your body,
nervous system is the same.
Your nervous system is the same. Yeah. Fuck, so you're gonna train once and recover and rest twice. I'm gonna train that muscle 3 times and recover 4 days. It's common sense, man. That compounds over a year. Yeah. So everywhere you want to look at it, full body workouts for me is the way. Now, the only time I recommend splits is people that don't give a shit about, like people that just want to grow, like their arms. I mean, let's be honest. We make fun of them, but some people just want to grow their arms, right? So I'm like, all right, you just want to grow your arms. You're going to look funny as hell. But again,
well, to each their own, If that's what they want, they just want big arms, then so be it.
And some people say, well, I want to get stronger. That's why I do splits. Well, actually, you get stronger by doing full body workouts. Science has shown it, and the bro science has shown it. You actually get stronger doing full body workouts. Show me an Olympic lifter or a professional powerlifter who trains the bench press once a week. Come on. Like you get stronger by doing more frequency because of the connection. So some other people say, I want to do I want to be able to focus on that muscle.
It's all bullshit.
You get to do it like it's
You know
just
what it is, man? It's because people, they try to turn full body into a split. They try to do like 30 sets on their chest and 30 sets for their back. That's where they fuck it up because they're not
yeah.
dividing it throughout the week.
They're not
You know,
dividing throughout the week. You
that's the
have to,
issue.
yeah. Because again, back to the elements of growth, energy, amino acids, and the growth factors. You just need enough. You just got to stimulate that,
Yeah,
uh, put those ingredients in the pot. And doing enough, as long as you're lifting enough weights, you're doing enough volume just to kickstart that growth response. Only thing you gotta do is eat and get the protein, and then boom, come back 2 days later, but then and do it again. You don't have to do, all that volume in one workout because there's a threshold. Everyone knows there's a threshold. We just don't know what
exactly.
the threshold is, but there's a
Yeah.
threshold. Split it up.
Yeah, so I'm just curious, how do you do your programming? Because like for me, I have a volume day and intensity day. So I'll do some days I'll just go in super heavy, other days like really high volume. So
I
how is your approach?
I do the exact same thing. I do the exact same thing, and in that I actually learned that from when I was looking at the way Tom Plass used to train. Obviously, he never did full body
Okay.
workouts, the juice and shit. But I noticed that he would do high reps, and then he would do heavy weights. And then later on, I found out about again the benefits of high reps and heavy lifting.
Yeah.
So I was like, man. Sure enough, I try to do everything in the same workout. That ain't work.
Yeah,
That
it
ain't
can't
work.
be done.
I don't recommend trying to do heavy and high volume the same day. Nah. So I found out that it's actually better if you pick a heavy day where you just go in there, you just focusing on moving heavy shit again. And a lot of people tell me, well, Jonathan, you found out that you could get big from doing high reps because of occlusion training and all that stuff. So why do you do heavy lifting? They forget. I also made videos about bone density. The benefits of lifting heavy is not just getting strong. Your bones actually get thicker and denser. And when your bones get thicker and denser, your body also has to increase the muscle mass that's required to move those bones. That's why if you look at the dead bodies of people that used to lift heavy ass weights, they have like those thick ass like bones. It's completely
Yeah.
different. So obviously, so that day you lift heavy, you get the hormonal response, you get the neural drive, all that shit. But you're only gonna focus on lifting heavy. Perfect. So next time you go, you focus on so you're still lifting heavy, but you're focusing on contracting the muscle, doing a stretch thing, all that shit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Getting the best of both worlds, and you activating the different genes that are correlated with hypertrophy. Because again, I made videos explaining that lifting heavy only does not activate all the genes responsible for hypertrophy. They've done that so many times in research.
Hmm.
You activate the majority of them, but not all of them. In the same way, lifting with only high reps does not activate all the genes. I mean, you have myogenin, myod, there's so many of them. When you do both, you're activating every single
Best of both
gene.
worlds for sure. And to me, I always look at the sports science world. Like in
Mm-hmm.
all periodization programs, they
Mm-hmm.
have volume, they have intensity. You're
Mm-hmm.
never gonna have a system where it's like just heavy lifting. Like it doesn't
Yeah,
happen. They
yeah.
combine both. Whether
You
they
can,
cycle it off in blocks or they do it at the same time in 1 week,
yeah.
you have elements of both. You know?
Mm-hmm. What I used to do was back to your direct question before because I couldn't find the optimal balance first, right?
Okay.
Because I couldn't count on the research at the time. There was no research a lot on full body training, as well as much as there is today. First, I tried doing a whole month. Because then again, I found out that your body, to see significant changes, you could actually see that in 4 weeks. It actually takes 4 weeks. Is actually like if you're doing something right, you will see small changes in about 4 weeks. It's really 3 weeks, but I just pushed it up to 4 weeks. And the reason for that is because the growth factors that peak when you train, they actually peak about at the 2 week period. They don't go down to zero after 2 weeks, but they start peaking after 2 weeks. The body needs to do that. So I decided to do 4 weeks of just heavy lifting.
Hmm.
The downside of that, I was getting strong as hell. I was getting big, but there was not enough volume. Because let's be
Yeah.
honest,
Exactly.
there was not enough volume. So I was actually losing size because prior to that, I used to train with super high volume. So it's coming to my body was like, hey, less cortisol, less stress. I'm just gonna make you stronger, but you're not gonna get as big.
Hmm.
Um, so then when I would go back to the 4 weeks of just high volume, yeah, I would notice the results. But then again, I was like, man, I'm
You'd be
losing
out
my
of shape, eh?
yeah, yeah. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna do everything the same week, just alternate. And that was the best of both worlds. Heavy day Monday. Next time I go, volume, then heavy again. My nervous system gets a chance to recover. I'm doing you hitting the entire spectrum.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. But you figured this out through experience, right?
Through experience. It took
Yeah.
a long time. It's trial and
Yeah,
error.
it's amazing to hear you say that because again, this is all supported by the science. It's called concurrent periodization, and
It's
this
called what?
concurrent periodization. That's the formal term,
Which is what? Like the
which is
alternate.
managing volume and intensity throughout the yearly cycle. So you have a volume day and intensity day. There's no blocks where you do like heavy lifting for 1 month.
Nice,
So
nice.
actually, like what you've been doing through experience is that the science says that it works,
Oh,
and
see,
there's a lot of see that like
I honestly never even
that's
heard of that
crazy,
term.
eh?
Yeah, yeah. Because I stopped doing show like soul like in like
Yeah,
2013.
yeah.
I started focusing on school, so I missed it. When did that come out?
That's been out for a long time. Like if you look at some exercise science books, like from 1996, like the research is well established. It's
Really?
mainly in the not the bodybuilding world, more so the strength training world. Like it's
That's
mainly used by powerlifters and stuff like that.
that's probably why I never heard about it. Yeah, interesting, interesting. I actually want to like send me one of those links, man. I actually want to look into that because I always want to make sure I'm optimizing my training. You know, because I know we
Yeah,
like to say building muscle is a marathon, not a sprint. Yeah, you're right. But if we could make it a sprint, I'd make it a fucking sprint. You know, like I want
yeah,
results
yeah.
without taking steroids. So if I could find a way to maximize the growth response, yeah, send that by me, man. I just want to look at that because again, I find it's by just pure trial and error. It took a
Yeah,
long time, but now I regret that if I had looked hard enough, I would have found the science on it. You know.
that's pretty cool.
Hmm.
So I'm curious, like we talked a lot about the stretching before. So what do you think about slow and controlled? Like I'll just tell you my thoughts real quick, right? I
Uh-huh.
think you don't.
You had that look in your face, like you about
Yeah.
to.
Okay, so like for me, I don't think you gotta control it. I mean, sorry, I don't think you gotta slowly bring it down. But
Hmm.
I think if you control it, that's pretty much all you need. And the stretch is what counts the most. Like let's keep it real, right? If you're doing like fucking 500-pound rows, right, and you're going really really fast, you're still getting the stretch. So in my
Uh-huh.
opinion, all you gotta do is you gotta up the sets and the reps. This way, you still get the time and attention. Some people say you should just lower it slowly and you'll get the time and attention. So what are your
All right.
thoughts on slow and
So
controlled?
my thoughts on this, is that all right? So again, I'm trying to stay objective by looking at the bro science and the science. As far as the bro science world, I don't know a lot of people that got swole doing slow shit, right? I'm gonna be honest. I don't know a lot of people that got swole, doing just slow. All the big motherfuckers I know who are natty owners, whatever. I mean, you'll find some, but it's very rare to see them doing that. So that's just the bro science. Let's look at the science. The science does show that slow controlled heavy negatives, promote hypertrophy. Again, that's because of the eccentrics that we talked about, right?
Right.
And then of course you're increasing the time on attention, so that also counts. So technically, a person doing slow reps is doing more time on attention and therefore more volume if you think about it than a person doing fast reps, right? But then again, when I start to see that the two don't agree, both sciences don't agree, I kind of go, all right, we'll see. The alternative is stretching, right? The stretching at the bottom. I believe that's the number one. Number one because the bro science shows it,
Mhm.
right? All the buff strongman, the buff powerlifters, all the stories I talked about earlier, whatever. And the science shows it, right? So one of the things which is the slow control, only the science says, okay, that works. Yeah, but people forget that I love science, but I'm not just gonna believe something if I don't see it across the spectrum.
Exactly.
So yes, the science say it works, but again, if you have to choose between something that only the science says it works, and then the other thing, the science and the bro science agrees, what are you gonna pick? You know what I mean?
Mm.
And just the fact that bird, I'm just gonna say avian study again. The fact that bird study changed my view on stretching, man, because there was not one contraction was done on those days. You know what I mean? It was all stretch. The wheelbarrow guys, it was stretch. The fucking Johnny Jackson thing, it was stretch. The former walk guys, the people who do deadlifts and say, "Oh my God, my trap started blowing up, so I started deadlifting." You don't contract at the top. So to me, the stretching is also the most important. If I had to pick, now it does not hurt to fuck around and do both. You know what I mean? I would start with the stretch. Somebody who's curious and want to make sure they have the best of both worlds because there's a reason why the science shows that it works. I mean, there has to be a reason. We'll find out in the future. Do both. Do the stretching stuff, and at the end, pick a heavy weight and try to do like heavy negatives. But again, the reason why I don't want people to do both is because you won't be able to tell what made you big. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You won't be able to tell if it was the stretching or the slow control. So pick a block, 4 weeks or 2 months or whatever. Do only one, see your results. Then the next block, completely ignore the other one and do the new method. I guarantee you're gonna see a difference. That'll
Yeah.
let you know. Okay, you know what? But I give you a hint, motherfucker. This stretch thing is gonna win. This
Yeah, yeah.
stretch.
Hey, but I think that's a fair answer. It's nice and objective. It's a good answer for sure. So I'm curious about what you think of sets and reps, like on these heavy days, on these light days. Like for me, when I go heavy, I'll do 1 rep maxes, I'll do 3 by 3, I'll do
Uh-huh.
fives, shit like that. And when I do my volume work, I'll go up to like 10, 15, 20, 25, even 30. So how do you go about it on your volume days and your intensity days?
All right, so good question. I gave up on having. I mean, even though it helps to have a number that you're going for,
Mm.
when you look at the big picture, it's really hard to quantify volume into just numbers. 30 sets or 40 sets, because it depends on how hard you went that day. It depends on if you bullshitted some of your sets. Obviously your rest periods play a big role in hypertrophy. I mean, there's so many things. Two people could do 30 sets, but one person probably had stretching exercises while the other one didn't have stretching exercises. To me, the number doesn't really matter simply because there are just too many fucking factors, right? Right? Because I mean, again, you could do 30 sets, I could do 30 sets. If you're going heavy and you're stretching that muscle, and I'm doing 30 sets, but I'm bullshitting and I'm not recruiting all my muscle fibers, well, guess what? I did 30 sets of volume just like you did, but you're gonna be the bigger dude a few months down the road, right? So I try to just focus, obviously I try to hit the minimum. I'm not gonna go to the gym and train only 3 sets. As somebody who's been lifting for a long time, 3 sets alone, I mean, I'm sorry, but that's like warm up, right? Unless no, there's no fucking unless. I don't see how a trained person can do 3 sets alone and then see growth from that. But if it works, it works. So what I try to do is I try to do the minimum, which is at the very least, 5 sets for that muscle group. That's just the minimum, right? Because some days I do more. If I feel like I bullshitted myself, then I'll do more. So I try to go by feel, but having the minimum threshold, right? Because again, they've shown that you want to do a total. The weekly volume is the most important thing. It has to be at least 10 sets. They say at least 10 sets,
That's what they
right?
say, yeah.
Yeah, that's what they say. So me, I always try to do more than the minimum. I'd rather overdo it than underdo it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I want to make sure at the end of my 2 or 3 workouts that week, I'm way past 10, 15 sets. If I overtrain, and fuck, I'm just gonna try to eat more or sleep more. But I'm trying to make sure I always overdo it and underdo it. So I have a minimum number, and that is 5 sets per exercise or muscle group or whatever. But I will do more than 5 on most days. Depending on how I feel, and if I feel like because again, back to those 3 ingredients. I'm gonna keep repeating that: the growth factors, ATP, and protein. That's all it boils down to. Sometimes we try to overcomplicate it. Hypertrophy boils down to: is there enough energy? Is there enough amino acids? Is there enough growth factors, right? So the first 2, that's not going to happen in the gym. Amino acids and energy has nothing to do with the gym. That's just your diet and your sleep and things like that, right? So when you go to the gym, what ingredient are you only focusing on? Growth factors. So now the question becomes, well, what's the best way to release those growth factors? Stretch that shit, right? Lift enough weights to obviously recruit the muscle fibers and fatigue them, right? And then get the fuck out of there. So I don't think in terms of sets and reps after I hit that minimum number. I just try to think in terms of, did I recruit every muscle fiber or as many muscle fibers as possible in that muscle? That's one. How do you know? Well, when you keep increasing the weight, of course, you get to a point where you're like, yo, those muscles are fatigued. They're done. I can't do more, right? You might want to do a burnout at the end, but you will know when you recruited as many fibers as you can possibly do, right? And if you're lifting heavy, again, the heavier you lift, the less volume. Well, the heavier you lift, the more fibers you're recruiting, overall, right? If you lift light, then you gotta do more reps to fatigue, the high principle. So,
Yeah.
To be honest, I know people like to hear, like, I'm OCD, so I know some people like to hear 30, 40, 20 sets. I just do the minimum. That's gonna go over 10 sets per week. If I plan to train 3 times, then I'm trying to do, at least 5 per session. But after those minimum sets, I just try to go by feel. Like, yo, did you stimulate your growth factors for that specific muscle? Because again, it has to be for that specific muscle as well. You know what I mean? And if I feel like I did, I just move on to the next exercise, man. I mean, your chest. If you do heavy dumbbell flies after your bench and all that shit, you will know if you got a few more sets in you. You'll know if you recruited, enough muscle fibers to elicit a growth response. So that's the way I feel.
So you're just going by feel.
I go by feel after I hit the minimum. After I hit the
So I'm just curious then, how do you go about tracking progress? If every time you go in, it's like by feel.
I track progress using only 2 things. And I always tell people only 2 things. Obviously, again, I'm not too big on strength. That's the difference between me and you, is that where I'm not too big on strength because I've seen hypertrophy. I'm actually weaker than I was when I was 160. If you look at my videos, that's what I keep telling you. I'm a lot weaker than when I was 160. There's videos of me doing 100-pound dumbbell extensions. I was doing my hammer curls. I was doing a lot more weight on that. My bent over rows, I was doing a lot more weight on that. but I'm actually bigger, minus the body fat, of course. Those muscles are actually bigger if you take away the body fat than they were when I was 160. Again, because I found out, all the different ways of growing the muscle. Again, the body doesn't know that you're lifting 200 pounds. It just knows, oh my God, you recruited the shit out of those fibers. I got to release those growth factors. So if you could find a way to release those growth factors without the heavy weight, you're going to get the same response. Again, because it's chemicals. It all comes down to chemicals. It's just lifting heavy releases those chemicals a lot quicker. But again, like occlusion training. That's what changed my perspective, and that's what made the scientists scratch their head. Because before it was all strength, strength, strength for hypertrophy, but then they found out you do occlusion training, that muscle grows with like 30% of the 1 rep max. Mm-hmm. And then when they looked inside, they found out, oh, okay, when you fatigue the muscle, it recruits all the other fibers. The same way where you would need a set of heavy lifting, to get the same response. So, to me, the number one way of tracking progress is, the results. How does the results? The whole thing I was doing on Excel, is my arm getting bigger minus the body fat? Because the body fat. Is my back getting wider? Minus the body fat, whatever. That's number one way. And then number two is obviously the strength, because I also want to, see some strength gains. The reason why I put strength at number two is because I made a video about that. You can get stronger without getting bigger. It is possible. A lot of people, Shaolin monks, they're strong as fuck. They look like shit, man. I'm sorry. They're strong as hell. They're stronger than the average person. These motherfuckers can, because they've learned how to recruit those muscle fibers. You don't see the size though, And I look at powerlifters who become bodybuilders and have to lower the weight and increase the volume. How do you explain that? Because in fact, they'll all tell you they actually got weaker when they started doing bodybuilding training. You heard that, right? Powerlifters that start doing bodybuilding training, they get bigger, but their strength actually goes down a bit. Now, of course, you gotta look at the body fat percentage, all that stuff. But there is so much evidence of people getting bigger without getting stronger that I moved that to number two as opposed to number one. Now that doesn't mean that strength doesn't make you bigger. It's obviously possible. I'm not gonna be able to do 3 plates on a shoulder press, if that's impossible, and not see bigger shoulders. But it's not the only.
You're just suggesting that it's not the only way of going about things. There's different ways of stimulating the growth factors and all that stuff.
It's kind of like that Brad Schoenfeld study that he did, where people did 3 sets of 10 and the other group did 7 sets of 3. You remember that study?
Yeah, it was the same results, right? But the 7 sets of 3 got faster strength.
They got exactly.
Yeah.
So that's typically, if your goal is strength, by all means, lift heavy as hell. You're gonna get stronger. Your goal is hypertrophy. It's not just the only study. There's a lot of studies that show that the people that do 3 sets of 10 or whatever have similar size gains as people who did heavy as hell. The only difference is the ones who did heavy as hell also got stronger. They got a bonus.
That's true. Yeah.
So you can't look at those studies and be like, no, the only way to get big is to get strong. Well, then how come the other guys, got the same size gains, yet not the same, strength and cost? So, and also the workouts were longer. When you lift heavier, you need longer rest periods, and the workouts are longer. Whatever. To me, it depends on the person. Do you want size and strength, or do you just want size? Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, the reason why I lift heavy is because I want both. Why not? But
but also, I feel like lifting heavy, it helps you when you're doing volume work. Like I've always said this, if you can get your weighted chin up to like 100 pounds in 5 reps, right? Mm-hmm. Chances are you could do a body weight very easily, over 30 reps, like no joke. So I see it like this: if you get your 1 rep max up, chances are like 70%, 80%, it should feel lighter. Therefore, you can get more volume in there.
Well, yeah. That's also true. But that also reminds me of several studies that did, because now we're talking about endurance as far as like the volume, like how much can the muscle actually do. And then even though that's true, they find it's not statistically significant, right? So the people who actually get stronger, when they go to do high rep work or high volume work, actually burn out a lot quicker.
Okay.
So yeah, because again, the body is, if you train it to lift heavy shit, it's gonna be a beast at lifting heavy shit. It's like the Tom Platz competition. Remember that Tom Platz video where he was going against this world famous powerlifter, and mind you, Tom Platz is strong.
He was able to rep him out more, right?
He repped the fuck out of that guy, right? Because his muscles are, he's used to doing high volume work, right? The other guy was stronger than him though. The other guy had a bigger 1 rep max. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's like, using that logic, then the guy who got a strong 1 rep max should be able to do at least half or 80% of the reps that Tom Platz did, right? Because that weight should have carried over to the endurance. but he got smoked. Now, of course, we could say that your heart goes into cardio. Because to me, really, endurance is not just the muscle; it's also your cardio. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
But again, conclusion, I would tell people it depends on your goals. It doesn't hurt to try to lift heavy.
Okay, so like I know, like you don't actually do occlusion training though, right? You just find ways of making your workouts more intense
I do occlusion training without fucking wrapping my
without the
shit.
fucking
Yeah,
band rums.
yeah. Because again, once again, I try to think, okay, what is being done when you wrap your shit up? When you wrap your shit up, all that's being done is you don't get girls pregnant. I'm joking now. When you wrap your shit up, what's being done is the blood is going into the muscle and it's not really coming back the opposite way, right? So I just try to like copy that without wrapping my shit up. So I do drop sets, extended sets, whatever. But that's on my high volume day that I talked about earlier. So I would do again Nucleus Overload type training where let's use tricep push downs for instance. I would just do tricep push downs to failure. The muscle's fatigue, right? So when the muscle's fatigue, that means your next set, as long as you don't rest too long, is already going to start activating the other muscle fibers. The Hyman size principle, right? So the slow twitch, fatigue, fast. But once they're fatigued, now your next reps go straight to the fast twitch a lot quicker. So I used to do my tricep push downs, and I would just wait until like 5 seconds, go back, do it again, wait, go back, do it again, and that allowed me to create occlusion. I had stupid pumps, and I had occlusion because the blood was going in, not coming back out, but I having to wrap my shit up. So that allowed me to. In fact, to be honest, that's the reason why I actually got bigger without getting stronger because back in the days I used to just do heavy, and once I discovered this thing, I do a lot of volume on those occlusion reps.
Yeah, but like what you're doing is just drop sets, right? Like you just
Yeah,
drop
it's like
sets over and over.
rest pause, whatever you want to call it. It's like it's drop sets. Well, it's not really drop sets because I'm not lowering the weight, but on certain exercises where I can't lower the weight, I just do drop sets like side laterals and things like that. But I try to create occlusion. I'm trying to let the viewers know that nowadays I don't think in terms of labels. I think in terms of the goal.
Okay.
If the goal is occlusion, I don't care if you're doing drop sets or supersets or trisets. The muscle just knows like what chemicals are being moved around. So I just try to achieve that goal. You know what I mean? Because I know I get a lot of questions. Megan, for Nucleus Overload, should I do triset or superset or drop set? And they're thinking in terms of the type of set as opposed to the goal. I tell them, do whatever is going to give you. If your goal is occlusion right now, do whatever is going to give you the most occlusion. If your goal is strength, do what's going to give you the most strength. You know what I mean?
Okay,
So,
I see. But and like for full body workouts, you keep your rest intervals low, like 30 to 60 seconds.
what?
When you're doing your full body workouts and your occlusion type of deal, are you keeping the rest intervals low, like 30 to 60 seconds, or is it even less than that?
It actually depends on the exercise I'm doing. So if I'm doing like a big muscle, all right. So remember I was telling you I do heavy days and high volume days.
Yeah.
On the heavy day, my rest period is as much rest as I need, right? So if I'm doing like incline bench on a heavy day, right, because I want bigger front delts and a little bit of upper chest, then I could go into a minute or 2 minutes, right? Again, I try to keep it as low as possible, but if my goal is strength on that day, which is my heavy day, compound bone density training,
Yeah.
My goal is strength. So I'm trying to do whatever gives me the most strength for the next set, which is obviously a longer rest period, right? So like a minute, 2 minutes, because again, I'm goal oriented, right? On my hypertrophy days, then yes, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. Because on hypertrophy day, what's the goal? You want to fatigue the muscle. Point blank. Hypertrophy, you want to fatigue that fucking muscle, right? So high volume, and then if it's 30 seconds, 60 seconds, I'm back at it. People forget, the more fatigued the muscle is, the more fibers you're going to recruit on that next set that you're doing. So if you rest too long, right, now you want to recruit a lot, now you got to lift heavy ass weight to try to recruit all those muscle fibers, which is the benefit of your type of training. For example, people keep forgetting that when you lift heavy, you're recruiting almost all those fibers. So you're kind of like skipping, the whole.
Okay. But what you're saying is about efficiency for the most part.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to answer your question about the rest period, is it depends on the exercise and the day. So if it's heavy day, then I rest a minute or 2 minutes, whatever it takes for me to do the next heavy set, because my goal is to lift heavy. But if I'm on my hypertrophy days, then my goal is just to fatigue the muscle. So I'm not gonna rest a minute, because then it's not gonna be fatigue; it's gonna recover. I rest 30, 60 seconds.
Okay. And like, do you feel that supersets help with this?
Antagonist or like same muscle?
I'm gonna ask you about both. Like, let's say it's same muscle.
All right. Supersets. If my goal is occlusion, yes. Right. So for example, there's a superset I do with triceps where I would do because again I'm trying to make my workout short. You know, I'm trying to
Yeah.
make my workout short. I'm too busy. I have hectic life. So I would do like remember the stretch pump thing.
Yeah.
So sometimes I would do like an extension overhead for the stretch, and then I superset it with like push downs or diamond pushes things like that. So that will help me get the occlusion and then do the stretch pump thing, a lot faster. On my heavy days, I rarely do supersets, even though science actually shows, and the bro science also confirms that you're actually stronger when you superset antagonist muscles.
Okay.
So if you do incline bench and then you go and you do a bent over row and then you rest, you go back, you do an incline bench, you actually get stronger faster, live. It's not like you gotta wait a week to see it. You actually see it. Oh shit, I'm actually stronger than if I keep doing incline rest, incline rest. But to me, my heart gets in the way, man. Like my cardio, I'm like, bro, I'm done with this incline now. I gotta bend over my bad back and do some rows. I'd rather just do straight sets on my heavy days so I could just focus.
Okay, fair enough. And for what do you think about conditioning work for bodybuilding? Like, do
What
you
do you
like because obviously you get out of breath, right? Like if you're doing
mean?
high volume training, low rest intervals, I
Hmm.
feel that the number one thing besides your muscles fatiguing is
Uh-huh.
gonna be the fact that you can't breathe. Like
Yeah.
if
Uh-huh.
so, how do you get around that?
I get around that by doing well, number one, the full body workout helps a lot. That's another thing, benefit of full body
That's
workout.
very
I gotta
true. Yeah.
mention, yeah. Another thing that for you guys out there who've never tried full body workouts, it's cardio. That shit is cardio. Man, that shit will get your heart rate, going. But my weighted thing, I still do my weighted jump ropes. I
Okay.
still do my weighted sprints. In fact, that's one thing that helped me when I got stuck at 200 pounds. I was still growing because again, I went 160, 165, 170, 180. When I reached 200 pounds, I just couldn't get bigger than that, right? And again, I kept doing full body workouts. But then when I started doing a weighted HIIT, my weight shot through the roof again. Even though I wasn't eating as much, as much as extra.
Right.
And then again, I did some research and I found out why. The whole your body thinks you're actually bigger. When you put weight on and then you run with it or you wear it all day, your body doesn't know that you just put weight on. It's like, yo, this thing is on you alone. So your heart starts to like pump more and things like that. And how did I know? Because I would be standing and breathing heavy, and I'm like, yo, I'm just walking around the house, and next thing you know, my body just kept growing to accommodate that. It's like people in the military when they start carrying the
Yeah.
ammunition and stuff.
Yeah.
And I keep telling people about the calorie in, calorie out thing. People in the military on reduced calories, right? Yet a lot of them, based on studies, come back with less body fat and more muscle.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Yeah, you see, that's another thing that makes you think like, whoa, they don't restrict the calories. Some of them come back big as hell. Well, again, you could say that they're cheating or whatever, but that makes you think. I believe it's because they're doing a lot of weighted carries.
Okay.
They do a lot of they grab my friend Paul told me about that. He was in the military. They do the weighted, thing. So that helped me with my conditioning. The fact that I would put the weights on and I would do HIIT. It's only 12 pounds, but when you're 220, you put 12 pounds, that's 230 something. Mind you, my frame is 140 pound, 150 pound frame. My heart is like, yo, like, what's going on? So that helped me, you know, uh,
Okay. But
condition.
like you're putting on a weight vest or it's ankle weights.
It's the weight vest.
Okay, the
Remember
actual
that blue?
vest.
Remember that blue vest that I make videos on?
I'm pretty
I
sure
used to
I've
have a
seen it.
blue weighted vest.
Okay, so
Yeah, it's the blue weighted vest that I used to wear in my estrogen videos and like I made videos about that. I called it my Goku type training, because
yeah,
the weights on, you
yeah.
know
Actually, let me ask you. Let's be honest. Did you get that from Dragon Ball Z?
what?
Did you get
Well,
that from Dragon Ball Z?
Dragon Ball Z confirmed
Okay.
it. Because when I started doing the research on it and I found out that you could actually get bigger if you're carrying more weight on you because your body just kind of thinks that you're heavier. It's like fat people that get bigger calves when they get fat,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
That reminded me of like the whole Dragon Ball Z thing. And I was like, oh shit, like that's how I made a video. I'm on my Goku training shit, whatever. But that definitely helped with my heart because believe it or not, I used to go to work and school with that. I used to put a big I don't
Oh
know, it's stupid.
shit! Like
Put
you
a
put your
big
shirts on top of it.
I put this big ass hoodie that I used to wear. It was
Okay.
like this big oversized hoodie. I used to put it, zip it up. Thank God it was the wintertime. And I'd be working. Nobody knows that I have like a weight vest underneath. And it's during that time that I went to 205, 210, 215. My weight just kept increasing, my body. And then again, my heart also, became stronger because the first few days I was like, I'm just standing, but I'm breathing
Yeah,
heavy.
that's it. Yeah.
And after a while, the breathing went away. I would just walking around. Now I could jump rope with it, sprint with it. I mean, it's.
That's amazing. But I'm just curious, how come you don't increase the weight on it? Like 12 pounds. Surely you could do more, right? So like,
You know what? I'm glad you fucking asked me that, man, because I've been trying to do that shit for like 2 years. To be honest, I have no answer to that. I've been trying to increase the weight on that for so long. I guess I'm too cheap to go online or too lazy. But now that you mention it, I'm gonna do it like before next month or some shit. Because seriously, that thing works, man. It works.
sure. Like what you told me just now, like it seems like there's some crazy benefits, you know?
Some crazy benefits. I mean, your body thinks you got bigger overnight, so it has to adapt. It's like the Milo. You remember the
Yeah,
Milo?
Milo and the calf, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, and the calf thing. Yeah, you walk around. Don't do 12 pounds. That shit is. I mean, it's not heavy enough. But trust me, when you're doing HIT, you sprinting, you're
Oh
doing
yeah, you
jump ropes, it
definitely
gets
feel it,
up quick.
especially when you take it off.
Yeah, but you try to grab a 40 pound, which is what I'm gonna try to upgrade to, is a 40 pounds, and wear that shit all day long. Oh my goodness, man! You see your cardio, your size will increase. Your everything.
Yeah. Like I don't have a weight vest, but I have ankle weights. I have 10 pounds per leg. I'll just
Like
shove that
me,
shit. Yeah,
like me.
yeah. I'll just shove it under my fucking jeans, you know. Walk around it all day. That really helps. Like I feel it builds the tendons and ligaments, you know. It helps with
Yeah,
your shins, it helps with your ankles, it even builds your hamstrings, believe it or not. You know, and you
they
wear
should do
that all
that.
day, you take it off, you feel like you could sprint, you know, like real
Yeah,
fast.
yeah. Yeah, like definitely. I'm so glad you mentioned that because to be honest, like I was like, yeah, how come I haven't increased the weight yet? I've been trying to do that for so long. But anybody who's watching this video, right, try it. Buy a 20 or 40 pound vest. Wear that shit all day for like a month or some shit. Again, it takes 4 weeks for your body to adapt, at least. So try for a month. I guarantee you your weight is gonna go up. Your weight is gonna go up. Maybe your appetite will too because your body is burning more. Your weight is gonna go up. Your endurance is gonna go up. You're gonna be amazing. And when you take that off,
Hmm.
like at night, because I used to wear it in the morning, go work all day, go to school, walk around. At night, take it off. Dude, I felt like fucking flying. I'm like, dude, like what's going on? It
Yeah.
just feels so light. Because you get used to 40 pounds. 40 pounds is a lot, man. How much more? I felt used to 12 pounds, right? I would take the 12 pounds off and I felt light. How much more if you try 40 pounds or 30 pounds? You know what I mean? So,
Imagine 100, eh?
yeah, yeah. You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, man. I'm going to put that on my fucking to-do list, man, too.
Well,
Wow.
look, I read a book. It was written by an old time strongman, right? What he
Mm-hmm,
used to do is take an 100-pound vest and
mm-hmm.
go hiking with it. So we'll go on these really steep mountains and just hike for half an hour, 60 minutes. And he said that the results were incredible, like
I
almost
believe it.
conditioning, you know?
I believe it because, again, it's not bro science. That is facts. I mean, look at the way the body grows. That makes so much sense, man. Yeah, I mean, 100 pounds. I hate people that they're like, oh, it doesn't sound like it'll work. I'm like, what do you expect the fucking body to do when you put 100 pounds on it and hike or walk? It
It's
has
crazy.
to adapt, or yeah, it has to adapt or die. It has to adapt. Like it
Do you also
increases.
think like it's a form of nucleus overload by having all this weight on you? Because you're
Yeah,
stretching out your muscles, right?
that makes sense. Oh, it's funny you mentioned that because I made a video about a guy who that's also what pumped me up to actually start getting the weight vest. Also was I made a video about a guy that put on a weight vest. I think it was how much weight it was, but I gotta find that video. It's on there. It's public, and his traps grew.
Okay.
He took this heavy ass weight. Man, I gotta remember his name. But the video's up there. Just put traps weighted vest. He took a lot of weight, put it on his back. He was a scrawny guy somewhere in Europe, and he put the weight vest on. He was using it every single day, and he was eating like I think like a bunch of eggs every day. I don't know where he got the idea. This is a guy who didn't know anything about bodybuilding, mind you. He was just in the military, and he remembered that when he was in the military, they used to wear the big
Yeah,
heavy
yeah.
bags. And he said that when he the days after that, he used to see his traps get sore as hell, right? So when he left the military, he was like, hey, I want to copy that experiment that we used to do, because a lot of us got baked from that. So he went and bought a weight vest, and he would just wear it every day and go hiking, just like you say. And he would eat a lot of eggs and whatever. And in like a matter of months, his traps went. That's how I found him because again, I'm the traps guy. His
Yeah.
traps went through the roof. So I was like, whoa. So one of the subscribers actually found this out because I was his best friend, and then he sent me the video and the picture. He goes, hey, that's my friend. Now that you mentioned the whole everyday thing, well, he used to wear this weight vest every day, and his traps grew. So I got in contact with the guy. I asked him questions to make sure he wasn't bullshitting or taking steroids or whatever. And you look at his physique, only his straps grew. Nothing else, just his straps. And, which makes so much sense back based on the nucleus overload theory because his straps had to hold, it wasn't a 12 pound. It was a lot of weight. So his straps had to hold all that weight all day long. It's kind of like doing shrugs on the calf machine. When you just leave the weight on there, don't even move and take it off. You feel your traps like, oh fuck, So that confirms the nucleus overload part.
That's crazy. I was actually thinking about an experiment. I don't think anyone's ever going to do it, but I'm convinced that it would work. Basically, you wear a neck harness on the entire day. Again, no one's going to do that shit, but imagine if you have a neck harness with like 100 pounds and you're just sitting down and you're doing work on your computer and you got this fucking weight trying to pull you down.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that it would get you crazy gains in the neck and the traps.
I'm convinced. I mean, again, I'm convinced simply because of the nucleus overload stories. It sounds just like some shit that we could make a nucleus overload video on. Hey, check this guy. He used to wear this thing every day. His neck grew. I'm convinced. It's just like the bird study. It's just like the study they did with the cats. The study what they did with the cats, where they put weights on them and then they had to lift their fucking
with the switch, right?
Yeah. And then that arm hypertrophy like crazy because they had to lift it every single day to pick up food and shit like that. So I'm convinced. It's just my only concern is it might cause the shit to happen to me because you're only doing one side. You're not doing a balance.
I see.
So one you might get the dominant. I forgot what that muscle's called, but pretty much one side is going to be more dominant than the other. Even though you still use everything to stabilize your neck, but definitely the extensor is going to be more dominant. But hell yeah, your neck's going to be fucking massive if you do that shit. I mean, it just, again, I'm so excited that I now know how muscles grow in the chemical level, because now you could tell me anything, a theory, and then I think, how does that affect the hormones and enzymes involved? And that right there, you have mechanical growth factor that's going to be activated all day. You got the nitrogen retention that's going to increase around the neck. And the blood flow is going to be increased there as well. Remember, the blood flow is going to be increased because when you take it off, you white, so you're going to see it's red. The blood flow is going to increase. What happens when the blood flow increases to a muscle? More oxygen, more transport, more nutrients. It's going to grow.
That's pretty crazy, man. So let's see. We've been talking for a while, man, but I still got more questions. That's the thing.
Nice, man.
So I'm curious about calisthenics, right? What do you think about it for muscle growth? Because I know you have friends who they came out of prison and they had these jack triceps, right? And they were doing a lot of close grip bench, and you see some of these dudes, they have exceptional development in certain areas.
Yeah.
So what do you think about calisthenics and building muscle?
All right, funny you mention that because that's another thing that passes the overall the test: bro science, myself, and then everybody else, right? All four, check. So let's look at bro science, right? Gymnasts, right? Everyone asks me, why does gymnasts have big ass arms and they don't do skull crush or other shit, whatever? Well, first of all, they have big biceps because they do a lot of chin up work, right? The number one exercise for biceps is actually chin ups. It's not preacher curls or that. It's actually chin ups based on EMG, simply because using your body weight, you got to balance yourself and all that shit. So they're doing that. Check. They have big biceps. They're doing the dips. As far as gymnasts, they got to do that stupid, whatever. No offense to gymnasts, but when they move their legs around and all that shit. So that also gives them, big ass triceps, right? So the bro science shows that obviously doing this. Then again, you got my friends who went to prison, came back jacked as hell, and I always ask them, "What do you do?" They go, "Oh, everything we do is just push-ups and pull-ups. That's all we have because they removed all the weights." So push-ups, pull-ups, pull-ups. And in fact, one of my friends, right now we're kind of beefing, but we make up at after every 2 years or so. But my friend Eric, not my uncle, my friend Eric, good friend of mine. When I should have said his name, but fuck it. When he got locked up, he did dumb shit, got locked up. Before that, he used to lift weights, right? Barbells, dumbbells, right? And he had great genetics. So this guy grew, like crazy, training with weights. When he went to prison, they had no access to weights. Came back, and again, no steroids. Everyone keeps thinking that it's so easy to, came back, his arms were big as hell, right? Huge. And again, I asked him, I should have mentioned that in the nucleus overload part. I was like, yo, what the fuck happened? I thought that, you were telling me there's no weights. He goes, dude, every day we just did push-ups and pull-ups. We had nothing else to do. So you got nucleus overload again, where they were doing it every single day. High reps, pump work, right? So I was like, oh shit, that's also, calisthenics. So the bro science is confirming it, right? People in prison, the gymnasts and all that stuff. And then you got the science. The science also shows, if you look at the EMG studies and things like that, that for some reason, we get more active, more EMG activation when we're doing bodyweight exercises. I never understood why. For example, the number one exercise for triceps for EMG is diamond push-ups. That blew my mind. I was like, what? Mind you, they compared diamond push-ups, kickbacks, skull crushers, close grip bench press, French press, and push downs. Number one by far was diamond push-ups. I was like, what the hell? Just like for biceps, number one was chin-ups, you know? And when I read the book Big Beyond Belief, I don't know if you read that book. It's an old book, you know. Big Beyond Belief is an old book, you know. And they were talking about how Bulgarians use methods to gain muscle mass really, really fast. Pure bro science, pure bro science. And they mentioned that the number one exercises that they've noticed, mind you, this is all they do is focus on like training because you know, they're always winning fucking methods. So they have a lot of detectives over there that just observe shit, and they find out that the number one exercises they've found is bodyweight exercises. So how much more confirmation do you need, right? So I really believe that bodyweight exercises, because of the fact that you got to stabilize, you know, the thing. That's just my theory now. You know, I'm not gonna act like that's the reason. Because you got to stabilize and use more stabilizer muscles. I believe that they're number one for hypertrophy. In fact, higher than barbells and dumbbells. Okay. But that's just what I what I think. And again,
yeah, but like, you think you gotta do a weight or just pure body? Like I'm talking about weighted chin-ups or weighted dips or like just in isolation, like by itself.
I think eventually you're gonna have to put some weights on because again, remember I talked about how you need the cortisol response to elicit growth. Yeah. I feel like if you do body weight for a long time, I mean, how much is your body weight gonna keep increasing? I mean, you're just gonna have to keep doing more reps, right? Which is a form of overload, so it's a form of progressive overload. But I feel like, yes, you're gonna get great results. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Chris Jones, remember Chris Jones' story? He used to do pull-ups every single day to try to impress the ladies, and now, Nucleus Overload, his back is wide as hell. If he did it for 2 years, that's a long fucking time. So yes, you're gonna get some results, but I feel like again, for efficiency, just throw some weights on, recruit those fibers quicker. But then you could do a lot of reps to recruit those fibers, or you could just do heavy ass weight where you recruit them, a lot earlier in the set, So I believe that you could do both. But if it was up to me, because I'm trying to get that stretch again, I'm trying to get that massive stretch. If I'm doing pull-ups or whatever, I'm definitely gonna use some weights, For sure. And then again, the guy who has the world record, the Navy SEAL who has the record for the most pull-ups, I don't know if you've seen his lats. It's funny, a subscriber sent that to me when I made the Nucleus Overload videos. He goes, "Hey, I have another example for you. Check out this guy. He's a former Navy SEAL and he has the record for most pull-ups. Bro, he has some wide ass lats." And when I interviewed him, they go, "Hey, what did you do to prepare for this thing?" He goes, "Pull-ups every day."
Shit.
No weights. So it works.
That's awesome.
Sorry, man, your delts got big as fuck, man.
Wait, what? What you say?
Your delts got big as hell. Your delts, shoulders.
You can see my delts.
Yeah, man, look at that.
Yeah, thanks, man. I did a lot of.
Subscribers know what you used to look like. Like, do they even fucking know what you used to look like?
Man, I don't think they do. Like, they just see a guy with a fucking beard, traps and stuff. They don't know.
You gotta show them the Alex that I, from years ago, man. When you first started your channel, but you look like. You were so scrawny, man. You were just on the camera like, "Hey, this is Alex." You were scrawny as hell. Look at the fucking growth, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. But also, like, I was inexperienced on the camera too, so I came off a bit awkward. But now I've made like over 700 videos, so everything's a bit more smooth.
The biggest change is physique.
But you'd be surprised, Megan. I did get bigger, but not as much as you think. Really, what improved would have to be my yoke. It would be my neck, traps, shoulders, forearms, and glutes. My arms are actually the same size as they were like 2 years ago. They haven't gained an inch. They're still like 16.25, It's only my delts and my traps, but everything else is relatively the same. So I think that the yoke is really the key to looking big as a drug-free lifter.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. By far. I mean, remember, my obsession is with traps. Why? Because even as a kid, I was always drawn to the figures that had like the big yoke, traps and shoulders. To me, nothing beats. I mean, I made videos where I explained that people would ask me why you so obsessed with traps, and I was like, you know what? I've seen people with great chests. I've seen people with great arms. They look good. I've seen people that have abs, right? But when a guy walks into the room, and that is so rare. How many guys have big traps, man? Naturally, of course.
Honestly, it's very rare.
It's very rare. When a guy walks into a room and he has that fucking cobra neck and traps. He could have puny arms, puny delts, which is puny chest, but he commands respect, man. He walks in, and people are like, "What is that muscle?" Like, it looks intimidating as fuck, you know. And when you add shoulders on top of that, come on, man. Like,
That's
look, to
fucking
me,
badass, man.
you know, to me, if you ask me to only pick three muscles, just three muscles, right, and then everything else is just puny as hell. Number one, traps. Fuck you, traps, right? Number two, delts. I fucking love like just big ass delts, right? You know, like the fucking, you know, things poking out. And number three is tricep, you know, because I fucking love tricep. But to me, that's that the traps. When I say traps, it also counts the neck, of course. You know,
Yeah, like the whole
traps, shoulders, and triceps. You could remove my chest. You could remove everything else. Give me those three muscles, I'm set to go. You know?
Well, you know, Migan, I've proved it that what you're saying is true. Like, I've taken pictures of scrawny guys, and all I do is I Photoshop their necks. I'll make their neck even with their ears, right?
Nice.
And I'll take the traps and I'll elevate it, and I guarantee, like every single time, it makes them look big. Like, you'd be blown away, man. You'd be blown the fuck away. Especially even the triceps. You know, you make their long head bigger, you make their yoke increase, they look like 30 pounds heavier.
Yeah. To me, the reason why it's actually true, not just for us, but people don't want to admit it, but they know it's true because I've seen people, when I see somebody with big traps, Marco has the sick traps, everywhere we used to go, right? In the gym.
Heavy, right?
Yeah, people would see him and be like, dude, like, it's so intimidating. You know, you remember when that movie came out with
Tom Hardy?
Tom Hardy. Dude,
Yeah.
the Google search for the word traps like fucking triple. People were like, what is that muscle? Nobody said nice abs, nice whatever. They're like, dude, like, what is that muscle? That shit. To me, my theory behind it, my bro science theory, because I have a theory for everything, is think about it. From an evolution adaptation, you know, point of view, right? We have the most androgen receptors in that area, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have the most androgen receptors in the traps and shoulders, right? And, you know, upper chest, the whole yoke region. That tells you what, man? That's the manliest fucking muscles, man.
Yes, that's a good point.
What's androgen? Androgen means male, you know.
Yeah.
So we have the most androgen, the most male hormone receptors in the traps and shoulders. Is it a coincidence that when we see somebody with big traps and shoulders, we like, this motherfucker looks manly as hell, man?
That's a great fucking point, for real. Like, those are the manly areas. Just like you see a woman with a big ass, you know, it's like, it's kind of the same deal.
Yeah, they have all these estrogen receptors there, and then be like, oh man, she's
yeah,
you know,
like she's fine, like
she's hot as hell. But you see a guy with big, I'm sorry, you walking at night, you go into a club, you see a bouncer with big arms, you're like, all right, you know, summer body, whatever. See a bouncer with a big chest, you're like, okay. See a guy with a fucking yoke that's just standing there, you're like, bro, like, can I have your autograph? Are you even famous, bro? Like, what's going on? You know, it's kind of like why people love Broadly. People don't know why they love Broadly. Broadly has some big ass traps and else.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah.
Yeah, man. The yoke is really everything. Also, like, I don't know, what is your take on body fat percentage? Like, I know you never wanted to be scrawny ever again, right?
Never again.
And
never.
Like when you get ripped, like you get sucked up, right? Like when you get really, really shredded.
To me, when I get really lean, I have no. I mean, even now, like I have no delts and traps again because I'm fucking. You know, I hate the fact that I can't rack pull again, so I have to start doing upright rolls, hoping that my shoulders don't get in the way. But when I was skinny, man, show me a skinny, other than genetic people that have good insertions. When you skinny as hell and lean and ripped, right? To me, again, I wanted that physique because I was always skinny fat. I was one of the ass. When I finally achieved it. It threw me off because I looked small in a shirt, you know, and you know, you have abs, but who the fuck walks around like this all day? You know what I mean? Like showing their abs, you know, like to me, don't get me wrong, it was fun to know that I finally hit a goal where I actually have a stomach this big, like in that picture, and I finally had fucking nice abs, but I wasn't happy, man. I was like, yo, that's not why I started lifting. I started lifting because of Brawley and Sagat and all these buff dudes and the Hulk. And I just wasn't happy. And then another thing is, when you that lean, you know, to me, it's not. I don't know. It's just not the power look, man. Like, you know what I mean?
It looks small, man. Like it looks scrawny. It's like,
I mean, people love it for some reason. I'm like, more power to you if that's what you like. But I'm sorry, man. Like, yes, I hate the fat face. You know, I hate but to be honest, I fucking like my arms, you know, hugging the sleeves. I like putting a sweater on, a tight sweater, and see my chest poking out. Whatever, you know, to me, I respect that a lot more than just veins because think about it. I'm from Africa, right?
Yeah.
I will show you people who are malnourished who fucking, just have no food and they're lean. How much work went into that? You know what I mean? You could get lean, you could starve yourself and eventually get abs
That's true.
before you die. So, it's a physique that you could attain if you just, you just stop eating. You just stop eating. People say, and eventually your body, your body's going to become lean. You're going to lose some muscle, but you're going to have some kind of veins or whatever. But how easy it is to get buff as fuck. People think it's easy to just stay home and eat. Hell no.
That's fucking hard, man.
That's fucking hard, man. Again, me and my appetite problem, I had to drink Ensure and shit, which is for cancer patients.
You serious?
I had to drink Ensure, man. I had to drink Ensure. Yeah, we used to go and empty, me and Matt, Lazy Lion, we used to go and empty the entire shelves of Ensure because appetites suck ass, man. So it's not easy to be big. I don't want to go back to being lean again. People call it big or call it whatever the fuck you want, man. I want to be big. You know what I mean? Just not a fat ass.
Yeah, just not fat. Like to me, I see it like this. As long as you don't got a big ass belly, and you're still somewhat lean to a certain degree, like it's all good for the most part.
It's so good. It's just people obsessed with the lean look, again.
Yeah, man. Also, I think it's like all these steroid users too. They made it more popular, Because these are the guys that are pulling it off. They're like 8% body fat. They're injecting all kinds of shit, so they look really full, But you do that drug free. I'm sorry. Even if you got a lot of muscle, you're gonna lose some shirt sizes. You're gonna go down from like a 2XL to a fucking medium or a large.
Yeah.
Your measurements.
You either gotta have extremely good genetics where you like a fucking mesomorph, whatever. Or you gotta be on the juice. I mean, to be lean and ripped and at the same time big and full. Either when you made that video, you were on like a carb loading, phase or something. It's just not sustainable, if you're natty. Unless, again, you got some awesome genetics, so you've been training for a long fucking time. Even then, I'm still like, hey.
To be honest, I don't even think it can be done. I think it's a temporary state. Guys, they deplete themselves, then they have a shitload of carbs, they pump up, they get good lighting, and that's what gives them the look. But I'm convinced that if you see these people in person, they're not as big as they claim to be. Unless they're on drugs. Then it's a different story.
Yeah. To me, that physique, it just doesn't make, even it doesn't make sense when you look at the way the body operates, because in order to be super fucking lean, I mean, it just doesn't, no. Because think about it, to be big and full, you can't be lacking in your protein, you can't be lacking in your fats for your hormones, your carbs, all that stuff. So how can you have all that at the same time be lean as hell? Man, come on. And again, if you look at what testosterone does, right, steroid, people forget. People think testosterone, muscle building. Testosterone is actually a more powerful fat burner than it is a muscle building hormone. Most people don't know this. If you change your testosterone levels from the low range, the low end of the range, which is like 300, whatever, to like the high range, which is 1200, whatever, you're actually gonna notice a bigger reduction in body fat than you're gonna notice an increase in muscle mass.
That's crazy.
Simply because, again, testosterone fucking destroys fat cells. It takes the baby fat cells and turns them into satellite cells. So it literally says, you come here, you're gonna become a muscle cell instead of a fat cell. That's one. So obviously the fat cells can't keep replenishing. And two, it increases the receptors for adrenaline. So you burn more fat regardless. Doing the same thing that somebody else is doing.
But that also makes sense why these guys are taking all this testosterone. Why they're lean and big at the same time. Like you put the puzzles together. It's like
your muscles are growing and then your fat cells are shrinking because they're not being replenished because the embryo fat cells become muscle cells. And then the fat cells that are left have more adrenaline receptors on them, so that they get burned faster. It's the perfect drug. It's the perfect hormone. That's why I call it the hormone of God, man. It's like the hormone that says you're gonna become a fucking man. I tell people, think about it. When your little brother goes to puberty, what do you notice? He's chubby and shit. He goes to puberty, taller, stronger, bigger, leaner. He didn't lift a single weight. It's just one hormone that just goes through the fucking roof and then eventually goes down. So these people, I tell subscribers, don't compare yourself to someone on steroids unless you know that you're just using that as kind of like, reaching for the stars, hoping that, but don't, nah. And that's what they do. They look at people like you and I, and they're like, why don't you cut and look like so and so? I'm like, fuck you. That's one. And two, you don't know what it's fake.
But I find these people, they're like, it's fucked up because it's only on the internet that you see people talking about this. Like, I'm sure, man, that when people see you in real life, they see a buff guy. They're not thinking, oh, this guy's a fat fuck. Like, that's not what's going in their mind, And personally, for me, like, people say, I'm serious. They say that I'm fat. Like, do I look fat? Like, like seriously, like.
I've never understood that. Again, you made a great point. It's only on YouTube, because I'm pretty sure I'm not the only guy. I'm pretty sure when you go out in public, people are like, dude, like, like, oh, I used to work out too, man. Like, they're like, yo, man, they're trying to.
For
So,
sure, man.
to the average person, that's not. When people say you need to cut you fat, right? I'm like, okay, so what do you call this motherfucker? And I showed them a picture of somebody who's like actually fat, obese so much. I'm like, so what's that called? Is that like, triple fat? Is that like, whatever? They don't know. They're comparing us to people who are like ready for shows, people who are on steroids, people who, come on, man. That's why I stopped replying to the comments of like, when you gonna cut? When you gonna cut? I'm like, come on. Like, I do this for me, not for you. My goal is to be as big as I could possibly get, and that's not gonna happen when I keep cutting. Now, what I do is, because of my genetics, because I was skinny fat, you never lose your fat cells. Whenever I gain weight, I try to like take mini cuts.
Okay.
For example, I just came off of one where I try to, if I hit 225, I try to go back to 210, 215. Then I go back again, whatever, and that allows me to put on muscle while keeping the stomach in check, and the cheeks are never gonna go because that's just genetic. So I try to like at least cut a little bit just to make sure that I'm not going out of control. Because the more fat you have, the less testosterone and things like that. But that's not because I want to cut. It's because I'm trying to take one step back so I can fucking take 2 steps forward and keep getting as big as possible. So.
Yeah. Yo, but the cheeks, man. Like, what weight do you have to be so that the cheeks aren't like fully popping out?
To be honest, even when I go back, even when I was like 180, my cheeks were fucking popping out. Like, see, I have videos when I was 180 and my cheeks were just like fucking fat face, man. And I was like, and again, dude, I used to call it Majin Buu, man. Like, it was the Majin Buu cheeks, and that's 100% genetic because my mom has these puffy ass cheeks. My dad has the same thing. And again, you laughing at that picture, man.
Dude, that fucking picture, man. Like,
dude.
shit.
If you watch that picture, I'm trying to. Well, I can't put it on the screen,
Dude,
but
if you
you
can
see
send me that picture, like, I'll post it on the screen if you're comfortable, man. Like,
yeah, hell yeah,
dude,
man. I made videos.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
seen
yeah.
so many videos, man. Like, arms are skinny, stomach is huge, and the cheeks, it's like this, and it's like, yo. So can you imagine when I started bulking? First thing that grew, it's like nucleus overload,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah.
My cheek just puffed up, man. So it gives me the appearance of actually being fatter than I actually am. And I'm like, yo, like, it's my cheeks.
But that's it. I think that's why so many people they comment down your videos because
Mhm.
like you could be close up, you just see the cheeks, but you don't see the. Oh shit. Oh,
Yeah, I can tell you had a field day with that picture, man. I can tell you.
Yeah, you know, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so they can just see the cheeks, but they don't see the rest of the body, They don't
Exactly.
see your arms that are filling up the sleeves that be looking good.
They don't. Yeah. So and that's
Yeah.
why I just started ignoring it because then I got to explain to everybody. Oh, it's genetic. I'm like, nah, fuck it. I'm like, yeah, I got fat cheeks, whatever. Like, even in school, people used to laugh at me. Somebody should be like, man, like what the fuck? Like, what are you hiding in there? And I should be like, man, fuck you.
Yeah, but you don't care about it, right? Like you've learned to
Nah,
live with
nah,
it. It is what it
nah.
is.
Yeah. Again, it's something I had since I was a kid. So think about it. I'm 27 years old, right? So by the time I was being people making fun of my cheeks since I was like what, like 4 or 5 years old, right? Because I always had them. So it followed me my entire life. Then I got a big ass hat too, so it makes it even worse because now you got a big circumference hat and then you got the cheeks, whatever. But it's one of those things where when I turned like I don't know what, like 15, 16, I stopped caring about. Now I just laugh it off. But at one point when I was younger, that used to bother the shit out of me, man. And I used to be like, man, why my cheeks so big, man? And then when I started bulking, same thing, First thing I grew, cheeks and stomach came back. I was like, oh shit, That's why I couldn't keep, bulking on splits. But for some reason on full body workouts, I was able to grow while not putting on too much. Yeah.
I'm curious. Would you ever do stuff like to make you appear slimmer in the face, or you just
Nah,
don't care?
nah, I actually don't even care. I mean, I got to a point where it's like, okay, like to be honest, I think it has to do with the. To be honest, I think it has to do with the fact that as you get, I don't want to say as you get more older, but as you get more mature and more like, you know, I don't want to say confident who you are, but I made videos explaining that how I went through like a depression phase when I was like, it started when I was like 16. And I lost a really close friend, and I went through this crazy depression phase that lasted years. Actually, it was like on and off, on and off. And this is actually the phase where I actually had the most. I keep telling people I had the most girls. Like, that's when girls are coming left and right. Yeah, I actually had the most. And to me, that makes sense back then. Now it makes sense, of course, because during that phase, what happens when you don't give a fuck? It's kind of like you're always drunk. You don't care. So
Okay.
your amygdala your amygdala, which is what makes people like afraid when they see you or whatever, doesn't even fucking fire because you don't care. You don't care about life.
Right.
So I was just myself. I was just I didn't care. And then they were coming left and right, and I was like, yo, like what the? So it taught me a big lesson. Like, yo, like just stop fucking caring.
Yo, mec, dis-moi, tu peux emprunter quelques chips?
Vas-y, vas-y.
Ok. Merci.
Ne paie pas ça.
Ouais.
So, yeah, sorry about that, was my brother. But yeah, so that taught me a valuable lesson. It taught me that, yo, like, you think about it. If you're getting the most action when you don't even care, you just like being yourself. Like that's the perfect way to live life. Don't give a fuck, right? And sure enough, that's my advice to almost everybody. Even my brother who just walked out when he asked me, "Look, I'm nervous about this girl." I'm like, dude, stop caring. And you know what's funny enough? He went through a phase where he was kind of like almost depressed because he kept getting rejected. And one day he went downtown, to go hang out, and he didn't give a fuck. He wasn't even expecting to get laid. He just went downtown because he's like, fuck it, I'm just gonna, just think about my worries and shit. That same night, he, brought a chick home, and then the next day he goes, yo, I don't even know what I did. I don't remember what I said. Like, I was like, dude, you were yourself. Women genetically like men, right? So just be a man, just be yourself. Like, why you gotta be something that you're not when they're already programmed to like you.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of men screw up too, like with the whole pickup shit, Like they're always trying to look up these lines and all this weird shit. And I know you made a video a while back. Yeah. You're not a fan of that whatsoever,
I hate that so much because I went through that phase too. Before that depression phase, that shit I used to do, it never worked. Then I go through a depression phase where I don't give a shit and I'm picking them left and right. Why? Because I wish you knew me back then. I wish there was a movie that could show how I used to be back then. Dude, I would go to work, come back, throw in a game, girl walk by. I wouldn't even give a shit, bro. It's like I would look back and like, damn, how did I get her? Then I remember that I really didn't care. I'm guessing in the girl's mind, she's probably like, it was probably like the first time she saw a real guy who didn't try to like act macho or didn't try to. I just had no interest in anything. You know how girls are. If you don't show them interest for some reason, they like you more. So that kind of helped too. So
yeah.
No, but yeah. So I think that's why I actually laugh it off. Like it doesn't bother me. Like if you got into my mind right now, my list of worries, the things I worry about, are so great in terms of like magnitude. Mm-hmm. I'm focusing on like. Changing Africa, changing young men everywhere. That's like my vision is like, because I know what it's like to grow up without leadership and without help. So my mind, I'm thinking about how can I help the world? How can I help young men because I relate to them better? How can I help introverts? How can I help boys initiate into manhood? Because I didn't have somebody to bring me through that. So when I see something about like cheeks, to me it's like, what the fuck? Like I'm thinking about fucking things on like a planetary macro level, and I'm gonna go in the mirror and be like, what the fuck? The problem with that is that most men, they don't have a vision that is big enough. So if your vision is not big, then a small issue like your cheeks or your man, your whatever acne is gonna bother you because that's the only thing that is the biggest thing on your plate right now.
Yeah.
But when you're focusing on changing the world and you're thinking about helping your fellow man and things like that, what the fuck is cheeks, man?
Yeah. No, that's some deep shit, man. That's some deep shit.
If you take away that vision from me, though, I guarantee you my cheeks are gonna start mattering because that's gonna be the only thing I'm gonna be like looking at,
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing with people who are poor, Like they got so many problems that, like, bodybuilding, for example, is not gonna be on their mind, Like they're trying to survive, stuff like that. So same.
It's like poor people. Most people don't understand how a lot of poor guys actually get laid a lot. People are like, yo, this guy's broke. He's getting girls left and right. He doesn't care about the details. Like he's worrying about paying rent, like getting food. So he wears bummy clothes. For example, like the way I dress, man. I can't remember the last time I bought something brand name. I go to fucking thrift shop like Ross. I wear the same thing every day, like same color shirts, black. Those things don't matter to me anymore. You know what I mean? So and for some reason, I have no problem attracting the opposite sex because I don't think about it. But if you want to think about every little detail. I was telling my brother that if you want to think about every little detail, how do I look? How do I smell? How do I, whatever. Well, what are you acting like? You're acting like a girl.
That's true.
Girls are not attracted to girls. They're attracted to guys, right? So the stuff that they make fun of us for, why are you wearing dirty clothes? Why are you doing this? Why are you so lazy? Why you don't care? They actually like that shit because you're a fucking man.
That's a great point.
Yeah. Who likes a guy? Think about a guy who's constantly looking in the mirror, constantly doing it's even to a guy it's a turn off. Even if you're straight, you're like, yo, what the fuck, man up. You're like, what the fuck is that?
Like,
be dirty and smell like ass, but
like I always say, if the man is spending more time in the mirror than the woman, there's a problem. You know?
Something is wrong. To me, as a man, women are attracted to men because we have vision, we have purpose. You know, we think of taking risk and changing the world and conquering shit, right? That's what makes us men. A man should always think about bettering himself, bettering his community, bettering the people around him. You know, just having vision, caveman mentality, right? How can you take a person that's supposed to have such a big vision and have him worry about his fucking hair or his fucking eyebrows? Oh, like, come on, man.
Yeah.
You know, to me, it's like that's what a lot of guys fail. I have friends. I'm not trying to make fun of them that look better than me, based on society standards, taller, right, more money, whatever. And to this day, they still ask me for dating advice, for like not even dating, like how to get laid advice. They're like, Megan, like how do I, how do I? And I'm not gonna lie, like I get cocky sometimes because I'm in the back of my mind, I'm like, yo, this guy was the popular guy in high school. He has this, he has the looks, he has the height. I'm a short guy, right? He has all the things that women want, but yeah, he's having trouble getting laid. Why? Because he's worrying about all these fucking details. I mean, and they come to me for advice because they're like, yo, you were doing this so effortlessly before. Of course, I got trapped, but they're like, you were doing this so effortlessly. What was the secret? And I told them, yo, the secret was it was an accident. I was depressed. I didn't care, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm just curious, Megan, if you're comfortable talking about this, like, what's your current situation with that? Because I know you have a kid to raise, and like, what's going on with that?
First thing with that is me and her dating now, right? Okay. I decided to make it official like 2 years ago, and the reason is extremely simple. I had to think long term because, again, I don't know if a lot of the subscribers know the story. Like I was saying, I was sleeping around left and right? Because again, it came easy to me because again, I didn't care, whatever. So I was sleeping left and right, and eventually it catches up to you. So it caught up to me. Now, mind you, we always took Plan B and all that shit, but this time, so and so didn't take it. So sure enough, kid comes out, and I had to make a decision. I was like, yo, am I still gonna sleep around while having a kid and possibly get another girl knocked up and have 2 baby mamas, which is the worst thing you want to have? Or am I going to be a part of my child's life? In order for me to be a part of my child's life, me and the mother have to be together. That's why it took me 2 years. It took me 2 years to finally make that decision because I really didn't want to. I'm a free guy. I don't believe people that know me know I don't believe in society's rules. I don't believe in marriage, all these things. To me, I just believe that men are made to be free, and eventually, if you fall in love with someone, sure. But to me, I was always a free soul. But I also had to think, dude, like you can't be a free soul and at the same time being like you got to pick or choose. Either you're gonna be in your kid's life, you're gonna grow up with her mom and dad, or you're gonna be the guy that's sleeping around while the kid is waiting for him at the house. No.
Yeah.
So I waited, but again, you also gotta have, you also gotta like the girl. So obviously, I like Hannah. She was cool, but I had to wait until it was it was a good decision. I didn't want to just say, hey, we're gonna get together just because we have to. I also wanted to make sure, long term, I wasn't gonna get fed up and whatever. So I had to become a man, pretty much. I had to just, be there for my kids. So.
Well, would you say that, like, I'm sure it did, but would you say that this has strengthened yourself as a man? Like, you become a better man because
of course. Now, I'll be honest. That doesn't mean that I don't look at ass, when it walks by. I mean,
every man does. Let's be honest.
Right? Yeah. Me and her joke about that all the time because I'm honest as fuck. I'm honest as hell. I tell her, I'm like, yo, I'm gonna look at ass. I'm just gonna, respect you and and not fuck around and smash things. But I'm still gonna be a man. I'm still gonna have the urges. I'm still gonna see a hot girl and be like, damn, like she's smashable and shit. It's just I'm gonna keep the rules, because in the same way I wouldn't want you to go smash somebody else. So why would I do it? So it made me more focused, more responsible because I took that step forward. But it didn't take away the primal urge to want to smash everything that walks. I just gotta control it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
and again, nowadays my vision is so big that to be honest, I don't see myself getting out, leaving, and looking for,
like there's more things important in life,
Exactly.
So yeah. I mean that is the name of your channel. It's Team3DAlpha. And in the description, like you're not even talking about fitness. You're talking about lifestyle changes that guys could make.
Yeah, I'm. To me, I'm always. If you ask me what is one word to me, it's always legacy. I believe that we all gotta leave something behind, all of us. And to leave something behind, you gotta become something bigger than yourself. You gotta grow as a person. We always complain about. We complain about society. We complain about problems. We complain about so. But we forget that who are the problem solvers, right? We are the problem solvers, right? Now again, I'm not saying that women can't solve problems. I'm just saying, like, historically, we're the ones with the balls. We're the ones who like take the biggest risks. You know, we designed for that. You know, like we have higher testosterone levels, which is the risk-taking hormone. You know, we fucking stupid. That's why we take so many big risks. Women are careful. They plan. They don't expose themselves to danger. Well, guess what? You lower your risk, you lower your reward. Men conquer the globe because we're the ones who are like, you know what? I've never been on a boat before, but I'm gonna get on a boat and go see what's on the other side of the fucking river. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like we are the problem solvers. You know, and of course we can't do it alone. We need a woman to help us and all that. But so it's up to every single one of us to try our hardest to contribute to the problems of society. But before we get to that, we have to find our own identities, right? And we have to grow into that identity.
Yeah.
So that's what the goal is, to wake up men. Like, we all got to wake up, man. We got to stop waiting for a president to do it. I mean, he was a kid at one point. I tell people, everyone you're waiting for to solve a problem, that person was a kid at one point. He was a baby, just like you. So he had to grow into that position of, you know, power leadership. So why not you, you know? Now, everyone's like, we can't all be kings. We can't all be leaders. That's bullshit. Because, again, if I go to the desert, like I would say, and I'm looking for water, and I see a little shepherd boy, guess what? That's my leader right there, because now he knows where the water is. I have to follow him. I don't care if I'm a millionaire or whatever. I have to follow him, right? If I need surgery, the doctor is the best hope that I have. He's my leader, you know, doing that surgery. So I feel like we all have a place and a throne, depending on what aspect it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So, for example, somebody wants advice, they have to come to you. You know, say they want advice on something that you experienced in. You're the leader in that situation.
Right.
Right? If fucking Warren Buffett, billionaire, wants to get in shape or wants to get stronger, well, guess what? Alex knows more than him. You as leader, when it comes to that aspect, he has to come to you and be like, okay, how do I do cheat shrugs? I want to get bigger traps. You know, how do I? Whatever. So everyone has the potential to be a leader. It's just that we think being a leader simply means you're sitting on the fucking throne of the world and you're ruling everybody. That's not what leadership is.
Yeah, it's about like mastering yourself and then like being the leader of what you do. You know, and that could be it's different for everybody. Obviously.
Exactly. Mastering yourself, finding your identity, finding what you're good at. That's why I said dominant discipline direction. You know, dominance, become the best at something. Something. Don't guess. Just pick something that you're passionate and obsessed about. Become the best at that. Right? And then once you become the best at that, you're automatically a leader for everyone else that's going to come after you seeking that same goal. You know what I mean? So some people are like, I don't know what to do with my life. I'm like, what do you love? What are you obsessed about? I don't know. I just like drawing or some shit. You like drawing? I don't give a fuck. All right? Become the best artist that ever lived. When people want to, you know, need an architect to draw something or they want to do a portrait, they'll come to you for advice. You will lead them into that domain. Right? So people need to stop thinking of leadership and problem solving as I have to cure cancer. I mean, not everyone is, you know, no, just pick something you're obsessed about, become the best at that, and then lead people into that.
Exactly.
You know? So
I know you have a daily routine, right? Where you look up, what was it again? You have an important figure, you have a history thing, like.
It changes over time. But when I first started, it was because when I first started, I was like, okay, I gotta find myself. I gotta know the world around me. So I picked the things that I needed to improve on. I didn't know about historical figures, so it was biography, one person a day, one historical person a day. It was one country a day. I wanted to know about the world around me, countries, cities, whatever. So it was one country a day. It was one article a day. I mean, it was just based on the stuff that I had to know. And over time, because I was doing it every single day, over time, I knew a lot about certain things. And then I had to reassess and see what areas am I lacking in. So then that became my daily routine. For example, when I wanted to learn stock trading, it was like, okay, so I have in my daily routine, I have a section for stocks where it was one pattern a day, one candlestick pattern a day, one trader a day, one strategy a day, things like that. When I wanted to learn about what I was talking about earlier, how the body grows from the cells all the way to whatever, I was like, okay, one enzyme a day, one hypertrophy hormone a day, one fat loss hormone a day, one cyst. I mean, pretty much I pick the things that matter the most to me or the things that I want to improve in, and for each of those sections, I put checklists. So for stocks, I put like 5 or 10 things. For history, I pick like one conquest a day, the conquest of India, the conquest of the Mayans. I tell people though, don't pick random shit. Pick something that you actually
relevant to you.
Yeah, that's relevant to you and to your goals. And it's amazing. It's the best decision I ever made, man, because Now I'm like a walking encyclopedia where you talk to me about economics. We can sit there and talk about economics all day. You want to talk about psychology? We don't talk about psychology and the brain and neuroscience. You want to talk about building muscle? I'm here. You want to talk about fat loss? So it helps you grow as a person so that you're able to solve problems. Because what's the end goal of all that? It's not just to know shit and brag. That's stupid. It's to be able to solve problems.
Right. But like you do this every day, right? Like it's
Every
still
day.
something that you can like you continually believe in it and
Yeah, every day except weekends. What I try to do, I try to avoid weekends because if you do it Monday through Sunday, eventually you're gonna burn out. You're gonna burn out because it's mentally taxing. I'll be the first one to tell you. It's like going to school every day because it takes
yeah,
hours.
it's constant research, obviously.
Yeah, it's constant research. Now, of course, the secret to making it last, because at first it was up and down. I would skip days, whatever. The secret to making it last is you want to keep it as short as possible. One person a day. You don't have to learn to read 20 pages. Just go to the Wikipedia, look at their biography, or go to encyclopedia, read their early life and education. Boom, 3 minutes, move on, right?
Mm.
You do that for a year, that's 365 people, minus the weekends, of course. So the key is to do a little bit each day and then let it stack up. You know?
Yeah, when you think about it, you're getting a really good education. And
Mhm.
I would even argue that in some cases more so than formal education because it's
Of course.
constant, you know?
Of course, it's more than fun because it's not you're not pressured. That's one because you learn better when you learn at your own pace,
Yeah, and
and you actually choose what you want to learn.
it's stuff that you want. And when you
Stuff
want
that
it, it's like the motivation is much more high, you know?
the motivation is there and you retain it better because you're actually interested, as opposed to today we got to do trigonometry in school. I don't want no.
Yeah.
But for
So
example, think about it. I learned biology and chemistry in high school. I forgot everything, but when I was interested in learning about how the body works, I went back in and I learned everything about the human body, and I retained it because I was actually interested. So
yeah, it's crazy how it works. So even for me, like when I was in high school, science, like I fucking hated it, man. You know, I wouldn't study, all that shit, and I had to learn it when I was older because I wanted to learn about muscle building, right? And
exactly.
I retained everything. Now I love that stuff, physics, biology, it's all good shit. But
Hell yeah, yeah,
if I would have learned
yeah,
it in the past,
yeah.
it wouldn't retain. So I'm curious, Megan. I mean, how come you still go to school and stuff like that?
All
If you,
right. Now I get this question a lot. It's two things. Number one, it's my goals, right? My If it was up to me, I would be in school for the rest of my life. If it was up to me, because I can't get enough of knowledge. Because every time I learn something, I solve a problem, then I see a problem that I can't solve, so I have to go back and learn again. Then I solve that. Pretty much, the more you learn, the more problems you're able to solve. But then the more you also realize your limits. You're like, I was able to help him with that, but I really can't help him with that. So pretty much my quest for knowledge is what keeps me, learning anymore. The second reason was because I actually made a promise to myself because I dropped out of school 3 times. Right? I dropped out of school 3 times. I started college at 16, but I had no focus, I had no identity, I had no vision. So I just went to school, got my A's, but then I was like, okay, I'm just following the system. So when I moved out on my own at 17, I dropped out. I was like, fuck that. I don't have the pressure to go to school. I don't live with my mom anymore, so I dropped out. But then, I was like, you know what? I want a good working job. I was working 2 jobs at 17. I was stressed. I went back to school just because of the pressure. Then I dropped out again because, again, I didn't know what field I wanted to be in. Pretty much, long story short, I dropped out 3 times. And I told myself that I was going to get a degree for every time I dropped out. It was stupid, but it was a way to motivate myself to go back to school. I was like, I'm going to go back and I'm going to punish myself for being such a fucking bitch and dropping out and not finishing the course. And I accomplished that. I got my 3 associates at the river. But throughout that time, also, that's when the kid came about.
okay,
It was born. So now I was like, fuck. Now getting knowledge is not just about growing as a person. Now it's actually I have to be able to put money on the table, right? And I'm not gonna be able to, at first I was just working like fucking two to 4 jobs, right? That's when I was doing the 4 job thing. And then I realized I'm getting money from doing that, but I don't have time to spend with my kid. So I wanted something that paid more. Problem with that is, think about it. I'm a rebel. I'm a fucking rebel at heart, right? I hate society. I'm always like, I hate the fact that they want us to bend over to their will. You know what I mean? Like that.
yeah,
Yeah. So I fucking hate it. So I'm somebody that wants to be independent. You can't do that unless you have capital, money. You pretty much need money to be free. But yet again, so it's like I was like, all right, so that means I gotta find a job, right? But a guy like me, fucking locks, speaks his mind. I mean, fucking whatever. I'm not gonna go to school with the same degree as an Asian guy or a white guy, you know, whatever, and you know, looking like this. I mean, it's the society we live in, you know, just the way it is. You know, if I go and I show that I have a degree in this, the other guy goes, he has a degree in that, but one guy looks like Team3DAlpha Migan here, the other guy is like this. Not, I mean, automatically, I don't even blame them for it. I don't even blame them for it. And they're gonna go and say, you know what, we're gonna pick the other guy. And in fact, the statistics show it. You know, if they see your name is like Tyrone, whatever, the other guy's whatever, they're calling 50% more. Yeah. It's a fact. Yeah. So for me to have an edge or whatever, I need to slightly outwork the competition. You know, so that was one of the things that I put together with my love for knowledge to, you know, to go ahead and say, you know what, get those degrees, you know, stack those degrees, and then if you don't get a job after that, fine. You know, at least you have enough knowledge to start your own shit. So the number one reason was I made a dumb promise years ago, which I wanted to keep, right? So it's actually 3 reasons. So the promise that I made, I accomplished that, 3 degrees. The second thing was obviously the need for knowledge. You know, I love knowledge, period. Yes, I study at home too, but you know, why not get a degree for what you're learning? Because I know all these things, right? But I can't just go to a person and be like, hey,
I just say you know it, yeah.
Yeah, they're like, you gotta have a degree. So I'm like, fuck you guys, fine. And then the third reason is, in case it comes down to it, I gotta find a job to support my kid, I will have the credentials to have an edge. Now again, it's not guaranteed, but when you put all those 3 causes together,
for sure. But like this is all assuming you want to get a job, right? Because I know, like, given your mentality and the way you mind things, like, you'd be a great entrepreneur, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's what I'm saying. The job thing is a spare tire. For example, when people are surprised that when I graduate, I don't plan to just go into the workforce unless I get like a really good offer, right? And I told them it's because I don't want to work. I don't want to work for somebody else. I want to work. I want to work for me. I want to be an entrepreneur. The reason why I'm still doing it is because I'm not stupid. Also, I gotta have a spare tire. I have a daughter. If I didn't have a kid, fuck school. You know, after I get my degrees and whatever, I'm done. But I need you got to look at risk and reward. You just got to look at probabilities. You know, what if I start a business or I start going my own way, whatever, and then I just fell miserably? I can't tell my daughter, hey, sorry. You know me, I hate excuses. I can't be like, hey, sorry, school. At least I have degrees that I could just go and cash in and get a decent paying job and take care of her. Okay. But if she's out of the picture, God forbid, if she's out of the picture, fuck that, man. I'm not looking for, I'm done with school, because that's the only reason why I'm doing this, because I want to have a spare tire in case shit hits the fan and I gotta support her.
Okay, so you're just being a responsible father for the most part.
Pretty much.
Is what it is.
Pretty much, yeah.
Good. That's to be respected. But ideally, like, given the way your mind thinks and all that, entrepreneurship would be the number 1 route, right? Like, I know you learned all about the stocks and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, how's that going out for you?
Number 1 route. In fact, the reason why, like, everyone's asking me, like, what am I doing now? In fact, I quit my job back in February to focus on stocks. And I'm glad I made that decision, because I never would have learned all the things I learned about the stock market unless I had made that leap of faith. Okay. And luckily, the stock market was able to, obviously, everyone keeps thinking I'm like a fucking millionaire. I'm like, nah, man, this is like a long ass process, Now, of course, I finally became consistent, but I still have demons that I have to fight. For example, like, well, I don't want to go into details, but trading, the hardest part of trading is, discipline. Because, long story short, you have rules, you get in the stock, you're like, I'm going to get in here, get out here. But the hardest part is sticking to your plan, because sometimes the stock goes against you and you got to get out and be like, you know what, next one, right? But when you're not disciplined, or you're angry, your emotions take over, a lot of times you stay in the trade and you lose more than you were supposed to lose. So that is the fight I'm fighting right now, where I'm just trying to work on the discipline and the emotional control, because I'm a competitive guy, so I hate losing. But stocks are just like poker. If your hand sucks, fold. You gotta fold. So that is the hardest part. But as far as the knowledge, like my win rate, before I started fucking up, my win rate is 85%, and I have it on Excel, which is high as hell. That means, more than 3 out of 4 stocks. You show me 5 stocks, on 4.5 of them, I'll tell you exactly what they're gonna do. Based on my niche, which is insane. So the knowledge is there now. Now it's just the discipline. But luckily, I was able to go without a job since February. So obviously, working well. But my next decision is to actually look for a job, because I was living off the profits of the market. Mm-hmm. Problem with that is, if you live off the profits of the market, your account doesn't get to grow. You get it? Because you keep taking money out, then you make money, then you take it out of your account, then you make money. Because trading stocks, you need money to make money. Right. The more money you have in your account, the more stocks you could buy and the more stocks you could sell. So if you keep taking money out, well, your account is always staying at like equilibrium. Sometimes it goes lower because that month it was a bad month, whatever. So I'm thinking about getting a job just so that I could let my account grow without taking money out of it.
Okay.
So this way the job is taking care of the bills and my account should grow. Because when I actually went back and looked at all the money I made, minus if I hadn't withdrawn, I would be so fucking Gucci right now. I'd be able to buy so many more shares and make a lot more of my profit. So that was a bad decision, you know. So I'm going to look for a job probably starting next year just to be able to take care of the bills so that I could let my account grow. Or I could just keep doing the same thing I'm doing now, where I just keep making money and taking it out. You know?
I mean, that's your decision, you know. But like, one thing that I'm curious about is because you have a large following. You got like 40,000 subscribers, you know. Like you could easily get started on online business. So how come you don't consider something like that? Because it's passive income, you know.
Again, I get this question a lot. Everyone's like, yo, you know, like, won't you, you know, just, you know, start something? And I tell them, I'm like, yo, like, I thought about it, you know, like I didn't get up one day like, oh shit, that's a good idea, you know. I thought about this years ago. Problem is, again, you know, I think I made a video about that. Is the whole decision fatigue thing, where I've always been known as a guy who manages way too many things. Like I do way too many things all at once, right? Way too many things. And the problem with that, I'll tell anybody, it's not a good strategy because you're spreading yourself too thin. You're not putting 100% into anything else. You know, when I was, for example, you know, doing the multiple jobs, you know, taking care of my kid, my little brother, going to school, doing those things, managing the channel. Guess what happened? Everyone saw it. Everything suffered. My grades started going down. The channel, I was making less videos. I was still not spending enough time, you know, my daughter. I was skipping meals, skipping workouts. I mean, people forget, like, I do a lot of shit, which is not always good. So when I thought about doing the online business, I was like, man, like I can't. But then again, something has to die for me to invest time into that. Mm-hmm. We only have 24 hours in a day that you got to put in making, you know, in making money, your meals, training, going to school, studying, the research that I do. You know, all the stuff that I know, it ain't come to me overnight. It's a lot of time put into research. You know, you have a girlfriend, you got all these things. I was like, okay, something has to go away for me to have enough time because online business, yeah, you know, it helps, but it's not easy. You actually got to like put in some work in the beginning. So my biggest obstacle was always finding the time to sacrifice to work on that. Okay. And that was always my issue. That was so it's not that I didn't consider it, or you know, even some subscribers are like, dude, focus. They're like, focus on YouTube, man. Like they're like, we'll pay you, we'll send you money and all that. And I'm like, I agree. I appreciate you guys. I'm honored by that. But for me to put, let's say, 3 hours into YouTube, those 3 hours have to come from somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And people act like I'm the average person who just watches TV all day and has plenty of time. I'm always doing something. You know, I told him even for the interview. Remember we talked yesterday. I was like, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'm gonna do everything in the morning so that we have time to chill. My time to actually like relax is at night when I'm done with everything. I try to at least catch up on TV shows and shit like that, and then I end up falling asleep because I got to get up the next day. So it's like I don't have time for me to, you know, enjoy myself, let alone invest into activity. So I keep telling people when the time comes, I capitalize on it because I don't want to half-ass it. You know, I don't want to start a business that I can't invest time into it. You know, I keep saying Team 3D, dominance in the direction. I don't want to start something that I'm not going to dominate, you know, and be able to just go, full blast in. So it's time. To answer your question, time.
Okay. So like, all right then, here's the thing, right? Because you could always write an ebook and you could sell that. It's going to be 100% passive income and you don't even have to spend any time. Like you could check emails like once a week, answer some questions if you got like customer support. But I feel that right now, as your channel stands, like you can easily rack up like hundreds of dollars a month from doing absolutely nothing, just having a landing page and a book and something like that. So how come, like, is that something you would consider?
Of course, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like all these, because remember, my major is I have one in general studies, one in liberal arts, one in business administration, right? My favorite one is the one in business, right? Because that's where I learned, you know, all these things. And now I'm doing finance and management, you know, which I might cut off the management and just do finance, but then we'll see how that works. So all these thoughts cross my mind, and again, because I'm so objective, and I always like sit down and try to do a decision matrix for every decision that I want to make. I look at the pros and the cons and whatever. Every time I sit down and try to, you know, people tell me write a book, you know, not just on fitness but on life and this and that. I'm like, yes, that's a great idea, right? But again, they forget TIME, right? Because when I sit down, I try to do the math, right? And I go, okay, how much time will have to go into this for it to be successful? At the end of the day, it's time that I have to take it from something else. Like I always look, okay, I need this amount of time in order to write a successful book. I could chop it up, right? A little bit each day, whatever. But then I think, okay, let's say I do find time to take away from something else, which is obviously like impossible because again, everything else that I'm doing is so important. You know, like what do I remove? I actually have it on my Excel where I put down everything I'm focusing on now, and I try to eliminate the least important. And now I'm down to shit that I just can't eliminate.
Okay.
I mean, like you're a small guy, right? I'll tell you right now, time with my daughter every day, which is crucial because she's growing. Helping my little brother because obviously, you know, he came to the U.S. You know, I'm his guardian. You know, like learning English, the culture, my research on just life in general, like, you know, economics, all that stuff. My research in fitness, that one I was able to cut down a bit. The channel, that's why I took that whole break, right? That whole year break.
Yeah.
My education, the whole, you know, in school, the degrees, homework, all that stuff. I mean, I'm not even done with the top 10, you know, the stocks, the time put into learning how to make. You look at all these things, there's not a single thing that I can actually eliminate. The ones that I could, I did. You know, like the channel, I took a whole year off. And that allowed me to learn. People ask me, what did you learn during that time? Stocks, motherfucker. Like, that allowed me to learn about the stock market where I learned in a year where people take 10 years to learn, you know? Yeah. So when I sit down and I realize, okay, I need this much time to put into writing a book, you know, even if it's an hour a day or whatever, or doing online business, I'm stuck thinking, dude, you really don't have both the time and the mental capacity to add another project to your plate right now.
That's crazy.
So my plan, really, because I actually have a plan on that. My plan is to actually finish fucking school. I can't wait till the shit is over. Right? I have like if I go for the MBA, which I probably would because, you know, time is running out. But if I go for the MBA, I have like 2 more years. If I don't, then I have like a year and a half, right?
Okay.
Even less than that. But I want to finish school so I have plenty of time left. You know, because school itself takes like fucking so much time. Just going to school, doing the homework for every class. Yeah. And I'm have so much time to just focus on you know, writing a book or, you know, studying an online business and all that. To me, it's just about I don't want to start something I can't go 100% in. You know.
Yeah. Like
if I do it now, I guarantee you, if I start that now, something is gonna suffer. I guarantee you. Either time with my family, time learning, you know, whatever. You know, yes, it's gonna pay off in the future, but the question is, sometimes the damage can be undone. You know, like I already missed so much of my daughter's first years. Like that's one of the saddest. People ask me what's my biggest disappointment in the last few years. My daughter's 4 years old, and I've missed so much of her growing up. So much. Like I miss her first step and that stuff. Because I'm always. If you ask her now, hey, Natalia, what is Daddy always doing? She goes, Daddy's always working. I hate hearing that. Because even your kid knows that you never, you know, you're always doing this weird thing that to her, she doesn't know why it's important. She doesn't know it's for her. But she's like, my daddy's never with me. That pisses me off, you know what I mean? So,
sure.
You know, it's
tough.
Yeah,
it comes down to priorities at the end of the day, you know? And it's crazy, like, all these stuff that you're going through. It makes me thinking about, like, all the excuses that people come up with. Like, I hear so many people saying that they're busy, that they have all this, like, they don't have time yet. They're playing Xbox, you know, on the PC. Like, they don't know what busy actually is.
It pisses me off. They don't know what busy is. You know, like they have no idea. You know, what busy is. You know, actually, they're like, oh, I can't go to the gym today. Oh, I can't do this. Why? Because I'm busy. And I'm like, I gotta wait till the end of the semester to catch up on TV shows. But yeah, you know every single TV show that's out. Yeah. How you tell me you're busy, but yeah, you watch way more TV. You spend more time watching TV than I spend reading. But yeah, you tell me that you're busy. You know what I mean? So it's like,
what they're really saying is that they want to do all this fun shit, like all this recreational stuff, plus the stuff that counts, and they're not willing to eliminate. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, sacrifice. You know. And what did I have to sacrifice? A lot of things. My friends come by. Number one, if my friends, you know, like decide to come by because they notice we don't spend time. Even right now, every weekend they want to play poker. I'm like, I can't. Every time I have free time, it's not really free time. It's like, oh shit, I gotta continue this project, whatever. So I'm missing out on time with my friends. I'm missing out on time with my daughter. I have to sacrifice time, you know, like going to the gym, you know, meals, all that shit. I have to miss my video games, which is funny, right? Because every time I buy a system, I bought a PS4. I was like, man, I can't wait till I play that shit. My girlfriend has played my PS4 50 million times more than I did. It's still sitting. I still don't know how to operate my PS4. I bought this a year and a half ago. I still don't know how to fully operate it. I have to ask her or my daughter. Kids learn fast. Or my daughter to show me how to put it on sleep mode, how to put it on power mode, just to show you. And I'm not joking. And I'm a video game nerd. I love video games. It's just I have to sacrifice something. My games are collecting dust. All my friends come here and make fun of me. They're like, John, which game have you beat so far? And then they start looking and laughing because all my games are just sitting there. Like some of them are unopened. It's like sacrifice, sacrifice. Maybe one day it'll pay off. Maybe it won't, but at least I will never regret and say I didn't put in the work,
Exactly. Like you always say, I mean, it's better to have gone all out and just you screw up than to just not try at all.
Yeah, yeah.
At least you put in the freaking work.
At least I put in the work, And again, we live in a society where society is against people like us. Society doesn't want you to be independent and entrepreneur.
Yeah, they don't want you thriving for the most part. They want you being a rat
it wants you to be a worker. It wants you to be a laborer and a worker. So you're going against the trend. You're going against the way society is set up. They don't want you to be an entrepreneur and all that. No, because every entrepreneur is a worker that they lose, and it's a competitor they gain. Think about it. So to them, they're like, no, we much rather have you working a 9 to 5. Which I have nothing against that, but they'd rather work a 9 to 5 your entire life, and then after that, kick you off when you're old. Hey, get out of here, right? Then you spend time and develop yourself. Where do I get this from? I mean, just look at the system. You need money to go to school. What the fuck? You need money to get a degree that will allow you to make money. But you're like, how am I supposed to get the money if I don't have a degree? That's one. And two, if you refuse to do that, you have to go work a 9 to 5, right? You work a 9 to 5, then you come back, you're tired as fuck to do homework and study. So it's like the system is made for you to fail and be a worker. So I don't mind fighting it.
Sure. Actually, I know, when we were talking about all this stuff about self-improvement, you said that when you were younger, you were very introverted.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you have a huge passion for helping men become men again, giving them the tools necessary. What would you say are some of the major issues that are going through? For me personally, I think it's the fact that men have become effeminate. They act like women, and they don't have a father figure, and they behave like bitches, if I may say so. So what do you think are some issues that pop up, and how would you like to fix that?
To me, again, just like you said, to me, all these things come down to one root, right? Because all these things are branches. Men acting like, again, no offense to women, but when a man's acting like a woman, it's bad. So men becoming effeminate, men becoming, bullies and weakening, all that stuff. People, cracking under pressure and committing suicide at the first sign of stress and all that stuff. To me, that's all branches to the same tree, right? And what is that tree? What is the root of all this? To me, it's a lack of identity. I honestly believe that the number one problem for men is a lack of identity. What do I mean? If you don't know who you are, think about it. You will constantly live your life looking for the next thing in which you can fit. You look for the next, that's what people have so many. Think about the average young guy, the average boy that hasn't been, shown how to be a man. He wants to be everything. He wants to be a superhero. He wants to be a firefighter. He wants to be a businessman. He wants to be a warrior, a boxer. He doesn't have a sense of identity. So he's a rapper. I want to be a rapper today. I want to be whatever. Men don't have a sense of identity, and because they don't have a sense of identity, they don't have a sense of value. Because your value comes from knowing who the fuck you are. If I come to you right now, let's say that Alex doesn't know. Let's say that you're just some guy who doesn't know who he is. Whatever, you just whatever, and you act like you acting all weak and whatever. And I come in and I say, hey, we just looked in the ancestry report, whatever. We found out that you like the descendant of Genghis Khan or Alexander the Great or some shit. Instant fuckingly, something changes in your brain. Something changes. Your posture changes. Now you're like, oh shit, man, I'm an important dude. You start to feel a sense of confidence, a sense of dignity. Obviously it's gonna take time to fully mature into that, but you already begin to have a sense of like, man, I gotta do something with my life, man. I'm supposed to be somebody great. But wait a minute, what changed? I could have been lying to you. The only thing that changes, you were given a sense of identity. Even it could have been a lie. But that sense of identity gave you value, and it gave you purpose, and it gave you a goal, a vision. Man, I'm the grandson, the descendant of so and so, and I'm living my life playing games all day. Fuck that. And then you start reading books, you try to live up to your identity. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
In
yeah.
the same way, if you go to a homeless guy on the street and you tell him that, hey, did you know that you have a gift that allows you to solve a world problem? Like, it's this problem that even the geniuses in the world can't solve, but for some reason we find out that you can solve it, whatever. Out of nowhere, he has a sense of identity. He's like, yo, I'm a problem solver, man. Like, and then he gets up and he starts to try to get things done. And then you tell him, hey, sorry, I was lying to you. But guess what? You were able to change his entire
Right.
mindset because you give him a sense of identity. Men and young men everywhere, we don't have a sense of identity. We don't know our importance. We don't know our value, right? And to be honest, because we don't fucking know history. We don't know history. We don't know the importance of men. We don't know what men have contributed to society as a whole. Obviously, the same thing goes for women. Women have their part to play as well, but I'm a guy, so I relate to men better. Men don't know their value. They just don't. If you go to the average guy, he's shy, he's nervous, he's worrying about like tiny physical traits and things like that. Because he doesn't know who he is. When you tell him, hey, you 1 out of 7, billion. There's nobody else like you, right? You have unique fingerprints, unique DNA. If you die today, nature would never see you again. Like, you literally like an endangered fucking species, if you want to think about it, right? You tell him that, and he realizes, if he believes it, he's like, yo, you're actually right. And he used to tell him, you capable of solving the next world problem. Who knows? We don't know, because the potential is inside of you. Right? So that gives them already a sense of identity. Now they start treating themselves like, they try to start acting like kings and princes and men, and then they begin to act like it. But you go to the average guy, what is he doing? He just gets up in the morning, plays video games, watch TV, social media, jerks off, goes back again, and then he's like, hey, I'm just gonna live my life and die one day. How are men become men if that's all they think that they are?
Okay. So yeah.
You know? But what I like to tell people, I tell them, if you don't believe in your value as a man, just look at history, look at what men have contributed to society, right? Look at us from the caveman days until today. A man had to go out on the sea and discover a new land. A man has to tell his tribe, we run out of food, we go in there even though nobody has been there before. If a lion comes, I'll protect the fuck out of y'all. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta think of our ancestors, man. Like, we sitting here talking on the videos and shit. That's because one of our fucking ancestors was a fucking beast, man. Think about it.
Yeah, that's true.
One of our ancestors had a fucking spear and a fucking, I don't know, like a cloak made of lion skin and shit, whatever, and was leading his tribe. He was a fucking G, man. Like, think about it. He's the one that allowed his tribe to survive. You wouldn't be here today if one of your ancestors was not a fucking monster. One of them. At least one of them, So that alone tells you that, yo, we gotta leave something behind for the next generation,
Yeah.
One of the ways to motivate a guy, simple. Tell him to think about his great grandson going to school one day and hearing his great grandfather's name in the history books. That's gonna motivate him. You tell a guy that, yo, why don't you just contribute something to the world so that your descendants can one day open the history book and be like, today we're gonna talk about the great, I don't know, Alex or whatever, from 500 years ago. That pumps you up, man. That's because that's the way our brains are wired. We wired to do great things and leave them behind for our descendants, I think that's the number one issue plaguing men and boys everywhere is they don't know their value. They don't know what they can potentially leave behind. Now, not everyone is going to be that, but you should strive to it because you don't know. When you're born, it doesn't say in the back of your hand, you're going to be shit. Next guy, you're going to be a hero. Next guy, you don't know until you go out there and try to, live out your...
Yeah, so at the end of the day, it comes down to finding out what your identity is. And,
your identity,
which will create your value system and automatically gives you the masculine qualities for the most
exactly part. Yeah, because once you know your identity, in terms of like what you can contribute, what you can do, what you're capable of doing, all these things, how you're important for the system to endure. Now you have a sense of value, right? Because value comes from identity. Why does the lobster cost more than, like, I don't know, sardines and shit? It's the identity. It's the fucking lobster,
right.
So if you don't know your identity, you have no value. And if you have no value, you're gonna act like a fucking bitch, right? You're gonna act like the way most guys act today, where they try to be macho, or they try to be that. They try to find value wherever they can.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, what do you think are some of the mistakes or some of the things that men are doing that's just like, it's impractical and it has to stop? That's just making them, it's not maximizing their potential as a man.
again, I think the one of the mistakes they're making is they're not digging deep to try to same thing. They're not trying to find the identity.
Or
Everything they're
like
doing has nothing to do with the root cause, because the root cause is again lack of identity, right?
yeah,
And men are doing everything other than seeking that thing. I went through a phase where I didn't know who the fuck I was. The depression phase. That's why I went through that phase, because I was like, who am I? Who am I? But guess what? I did everything I could to answer that question. I would sit down. I would never forget the days. I would sit down on my computer and I would write down up to 500 questions. I would just make up questions like the most basic shit, like what can you do in a room of what do you know in a room of 5 people? What would you know more than everybody else? Like what makes you stand out? What do you like? What do you hate? What makes you angry? What makes you sad? What do you want to change? I mean, I ask myself so many questions that the average person is like, I don't know. I don't know the answer to, I don't know the answer to that. Because you never sat down and actually asked that. So when I did that, that gave me, it took years. I'm not gonna lie, it took me years because a lot of times I didn't even know the answer to the questions, you know. And eventually, when I was able to find the answer to every single one of those questions, which I still have on my Excel, by the way, it gave me a sense of identity. I was like, all right, because everyone is different. You know, I was like, okay, I know what I love. I love seeing growth. I love seeing people's potential being unlocked. I hate weakness. Oh God, fucking hate weakness. I hate weakness. I hate powerlessness. I hate excuses. I hate servitude and being oppressed by some. I hate cruelty. You know, pretty much it gave me a sense of okay, because if you know what you hate, then you know what you want to change in the world. You know what I
right,
mean? So it gave me a sense of identity, and I was like, okay, it's kind of like playing video games, man. Like you gotta know the characters, man. You gotta know like the attack stats, defense stats, speed, and it allows you to like plan based on that, right?
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
most people don't even know their stats, you know. So once I figured out my stats, it gave me a sense of, all right, I know who I am now. I'm a problem solver. People ask me, what? I'm a problem solver. I love, if I'm not solving the problem, I'm bored. If I'm solving, I feel like I have no purpose.
okay,
When somebody comes to me and is like, yo, I need help with this, like out of nowhere, I'm ready to like die to help that person. That's just my nature. You know, it's just because I don't know. Everyone is different because of the way I was brought up, alone and power. You know, I never had help. I was always bullied. You know, because I was in a strange country. I didn't speak English and all these things. So I always grew up like powerless.
okay.
So my passion is helping people that are in that
That
situation.
are powerless. Yeah,
Exactly, and showing them that hey, you can become. I'm not gonna call myself a beast, but you can actually become better than what you were before. People look at me now and they can't recognize me from 20 years ago. They're like, that's Megan. That's the little boy with the fucking, that picture that
yeah,
couldn't talk to girls and was like a fucking lame ass virgin and couldn't do it. And now they can't recognize me. And I'm like, yo, like I don't want credit for that. I
hmm,
simply want to look back and see who else was in those shoes, those miserable fucking shoes, and tell them, hey, you can get out of that. You actually better than that. Because I didn't have my dad growing up. You know, my mom. I don't want to mention her name, but me and my mom don't get along at all. You know, so I was like a fucking orphan because you're living with a mom that treats you like shit. You know, you didn't grow up with your dad. You didn't grow up with your big brothers.
hmm.
You fucking alone, man. Like everywhere you go, because you don't have a structure around you, you bullied, you can't fit in. It was painful, man. Kids commit suicide when they're in that situation. Not
Yeah.
me.
No,
I
but
was
you turned into a strength. Like,
yeah, it turned into a strength. I was like, no, fuck that, fuck that, fuck that. That's why I have that mentality of always fighting and never giving up. Simply because I've been through that. So now I'm not gonna look back and be like, yes, I made it. Fuck everybody else. No, now it's like I know what it's like to be in those shoes. It sucks. It's painful as hell. But I know that out of 7 billion people, a lot of motherfuckers are in those shoes and are probably trying to commit suicide,
hmm,
probably trying to like just give up and become bitches their whole life. I want to be able to tell them that, hey, you got a fucking bomb inside of you, man. You just gotta let that shit out. You could blow up into something. So that's what I did. I feel like men are not looking for the answers in the right places. They're not trying to find identity. The mistakes they're making is they're trying to, for example, people ask me, well, why do you work? I work because I fucking like working out. Like I fucking love it. But you know, people are looking for, I'm not looking for that as the answer. You know what I mean? It's just something I love to do. But people are looking for that to define who they are, or they're pretty much doing things to try to create an identity as opposed to finding the identity.
okay,
You know what I mean?
sort of.
That's why one year they're trying to be this, next year they're trying to be that. They're trying to put together some kind of fucking mutant version of themselves as opposed to just finding it out and let it, go through.
Yeah. Well, that's some deep stuff that you're saying, man. But like, in terms of habits that needs to be eradicated, like I know laziness. Like you're not a fan of lazy behavior, right? So,
Hmm.
what's some things that Like it just has to stop. Like right now. Like what's some things that you change with yourself? Like I know feeling sorry for yourself and just not having goals and stuff like that contributed, but what do you think is like super important besides just like writing down what you want, but actually like habits that's gonna allow you to excel at what you're trying to achieve? If you
To
know what I
me,
mean.
the number one thing is that daily routine thing,
Okay.
because you got to make that a habit. Because again, that was painful as hell. Because it's not fun. Who wants to like study one blah 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 a day when you could just play your Xbox all day or whatever, right?
Mm.
So I tell people, all right, you gotta create a daily routine. The daily routine was what changed everything because literally we creatures of habits, right? People say
Yeah.
I'm lazy. It's not that you lazy, it's because you made it a habit
Yeah.
to
You
be
made a
fucking
habit to be lazy.
to
Yeah.
be lazy.
Exactly.
So create a habit, right, of being productive, of learning something, right? Just start with new habits. Because I tell people, don't. The only way to stop an old habit is to create a new one, right? People just say, "I'm gonna stop being lazy." Well, you created a void now. Let's say you stop playing your fucking Xbox for 6 hours a day.
Mm.
That's not gonna work because you didn't replace that with something.
Okay.
So the first step is, okay, what are you gonna replace with the habit? So I would tell people create new habits. How? That daily routine. The daily routine. Start small. Start small. Start with 3 things a day. I don't give a fuck. It's better. 3 things a day. Let's do math. 3 times 365. That's a fucking lot of things at the end of the year, right?
That
It's
is
better
crazy.
than zero. So start small. 3 things a day. 3 things that are actually gonna help you. Like learn about some shit, whatever.
Yeah.
Eventually, able to make that a habit, and then start with 5. Go to 5 things, 6 things, 7 things. So I think the number one thing that has to do is people have to start creating new habits that will help them solve whatever problem they're in now. So if your problem is lack of identity, well, create some fucking habits that will help you learn your identity, which I believe is the number one factor. Because yes, fathers are not here to lead us, and leaders are gone. To be honest, leaders are fucking gone. Like there's so few leaders out there. So you can't rely on them.
Mm.
You have to dig yourself out. So create a daily routine that will help you. Find your identity if that's the issue. Now, let's say you already know your identity. If you don't know your identity, chances are you don't need advice from me. But if you already know your identity, then just look for the next step. Like okay, what's missing now, right? Create a daily routine that will help you become, a beast at whatever that goal is or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So I believe the number one thing is the whole daily routine. People don't have a daily routine.
Yeah.
Me, because of my daily routine, I know what I'm gonna do Monday. I don't have to think. It's a fucking checklist that I have to check off on OneNote. And when I'm done, I have the template. I just copy and repaste it. So I delete it when I'm done with the checks. In fact, what I do is it's 100 things. So I
Okay.
do a percentage. If I did 60 today, I'm like, fuck, I only did 60%. So I do a problem analysis and I find out why did I only do 60%? Oh, I woke up late today. Okay, fine. I gotta make sure I go to bed early and don't stay up researching whatever. Da, da, da. And I try to hit 100% every day, even though it's hard as hell. But I have a daily routine, so I'm not bored like, what do I do today? No, I have a day routine based on my goals, which is based on my vision, and I just follow that out, and I just let the plan play out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The average guy doesn't have a daily routine. They just, what I feel like doing today. No, man,
Yeah.
no.
So like people are just wandering around aimlessly for the most part.
Yeah. So,
That.
to answer your question, the number one thing I would say is structure your fucking life. Have a daily routine. That will help you. That has a purpose. You just can't be. I'm gonna get up and jerk off 3 times today. What the fuck? That has nothing to do with your goal. Have a day routine that based on your current goal. And like I said, to me, I believe the number one problem is lack of identity. So have a day routine that will help you find out who you are. Ask yourself 5 questions every day. The day
Okay.
routine changes after a week or a month. Once you solve the problem that it was meant to solve, you could change it.
Yeah. So I'm just curious. I mean, we've been talking for a long time. I'm just gonna ask you like a little bit more questions, and then
Sure, 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 sure.
we're gonna start wrapping up, right? Uh, but what I want to know is how do you stay productive while still having time for yourself? And like, what do you recommend for guys so that they have a break? Like, I know for the routine thing, you said don't do it 7 days straight. Like, have
Yeah.
5 days and then 2 days off.
Mhm.
So, what type of approach would you recommend for guys who are overdoing it? Kind of like they're constantly in warrior mode, you know?
They're constantly like just doing the
Like,
working
it's just
nonstop.
work, 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 and they're never
I,
thinking
I
about
don't do, I'll say
themselves.
don't do it. I also don't do it because what happens is when you will burn out eventually, and when you do burn out, it's gonna take a while to bounce back. It's gonna take a while to bounce back. So it's better, you know, again, it's better to go relax, take that Saturday Sunday off. If I don't take that Saturday Sunday off, I'm gonna fucking. It happened before where I was doing 7 days a week because we always think more is more, more is more, and then I burnt out. And when I burnt out, guess what? I didn't do my daily routine for like a month, man. Like it was terrible because I was like, fuck this. I hate it. I don't want to do this anymore, right? But I found out that when I give myself 5 days, 2 days off, 5 days, 2 days off, doing those days off, you're able to recharge. You're able to, look around you, apply the shit that you learn. That's nothing. If you don't take a break, you don't even have time to apply the shit that you learn. You just
That's true.
put a bunch of shit in your head, and then you're able to start back on Monday. And sometimes, if you get to the level where I'm at, where I've been doing this shit for years, sometimes you could take an entire week off, man. Because you get to a point where you learn so much that you just gotta like fucking, just cool off, man, and just walk around and be a normal human. Like I'm a fucking hermit. I'm never outside. If I leave, to go to the gym, school, or some shit. You just gotta take some time to just, but to me that's for people that have been doing this for a long time. Most people out there, just give yourself those 2 days off, but fucking grind, man. You have problems to solve. You're not just another. Whoever's watching this video, you're not just Steve or fucking Brian, whatever. No, like you have things to do. You know what I mean? You got a legacy to leave behind. Believe it or not. I don't want to sound cheesy, but think about it. You got shit to achieve. The people that we know today, the great men that we talk about in history class and all that, again, they were fucking babies, man. You can go back in time and change the diapers. Think about it.
Yes.
You can go back in time to year 300 and whatever BC and change. Alexander the Great's diapers. He was a baby at one point. He was a helpless fucking kid, like wham. So he had to grow into the fucking monster that he became.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, he was 6 years old, right?
Yeah.
At 6 years old, he was superhuman. No, he was just so everyone at one point was just another guy in Greece or in Africa or in Asia, And at one point, they made a decision to be a fucking monster. Yes, obviously luck helps and all that shit, but they made a decision to be better than average. Some will fail and die and be forgotten. Some will make it and be remembered. But do something, not just for the sake of being remembered, but for the sake of leaving something behind. It's part of our actually instincts to leave things behind. That's why cavemen are always painting shit in caves and shit.
Yeah.
So why don't you play on that instinct to want to leave something behind anyway, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So
like, what about books? I'm sure you're a huge reader, guaranteed, right? Like
Mhm.
I'll put money on it. So
yeah.
how many books? Like
I hate reading, but I had to force myself to like reading because I'm ADD. I fucking can't focus on a paragraph, but I knew it's something I had to do, so I made myself love reading.
Yeah, so like, do you think that guys should be reading like a book a week, or they should like just go at their own pace and do whatever?
Great question. I started too ambitious. I started with like a book of like 2 books a month, 4 books a month, whatever. And then it didn't work because again you got to work into it. It's like working out. You can't just start and do 3 plates, right?
Yeah.
So because reading was against my personality. Again, I'm a visual learner and I fucking have ADD. I can't stay on top, so I can't read, and it was so fucking hard, right? So what I did was I started with, again, divide and conquer. That changed my life. Divide and fucking conquer. I divide and conquer everything, So I started with just a page a day. At first, your body's gonna, man, that's nothing, man. Then I remember a page a day. This book has 317 pages. I'll be done before the end of the year. That's if I continue a page a day. But you know what happens when you read a page a day? Some days you're gonna want to go keep reading.
Yeah, you want to do more, obviously.
Yeah, you're gonna do more. So start with something small. When it becomes a habit, increase it. Just like working out. Progressive overload, motherfucker. Just progressive overload reading. You know what I mean? Just page a day. If a page is too much, a paragraph in the morning, a paragraph at night. Divide and conquer is literally the biggest thing, to me, it's the biggest way to get shit done. Divide into small chunks. If you're somebody who could do 2 pages a day, just do enough so that you don't burn out. Decision fatigue, you know what I mean? And, don't do too much because a lot of people, I wanted to just do 4 books a month. I had to work up to that. It's not until 2013 that I was able to do 4 books a month consistently. So I had to work up to that, to that stage. But I would tell people, read, start with biographies. Start with biographies of great men because that will inspire you, and that will, because we you want to play on your instincts. We competitive. Yeah. Men are competitive. I don't give a fuck. Women are competitive too. We're very competitive. So the more you read about great men, the more it's gonna trigger a spark in you to want to be as good. Of course, I don't want to disappoint people. We're not all gonna be the next greatest guy, but it's gonna trigger that alpha gene, I call it. The alpha somewhere in that DNA. That's gonna make you want to improve yourself. And you're just gonna be better than you were before. You're not gonna be, again, the next Steve Jobs or whatever. Who knows? You might, but you're gonna be better than you fucking were when you were playing Xbox all day.
For sure.
So start with biographies of great men. If you gotta learn a topic, I tell people history. The most boring to me was the most boring thing in high school, but it's the most important out of all the subjects out there. History. Because remember, I keep saying we have lack of identity, right?
Yeah.
The number one cure for lack of identity is history. You gotta know where you're coming from.
So like, do you recommend that people like they watch documentaries, read books,
Watch
like
that.
whatever?
Yeah. Another thing. Thank God you mentioned that, man. Thank you mentioned that. Another thing. I learned that so late in my daily routine journey, whatever. If you have a hard time reading like me, you don't have to read. You don't have to read. Documentaries is where it's at. Documentaries, TED Talks. You know, we live in an age where, because think about it, reading is, yeah, sure, you're reading a bunch of fucking, like words and shit. Watching a video, you're getting the audio, you're getting the visual, and because we're naturally lazy, I'm sorry guys that are watching, we all fucking lazy. Men, we fucking lazy. So you get to just relax and think. Another thing I did audiobooks. I found ways to get the job done. You know what I mean? If I couldn't read, I did audiobooks. If I couldn't do audiobooks, I did documentaries. But you got to do something, It's part of my daily routine too. I had a documentary a day, a TED Talk a day, a book a day at one point. Now it's like completely different because I have different goals, but I threw that in there. So I would say I'm so happy you mentioned that. Focus on the easiest way it is for you to learn. If you like audio visual, documentaries, TED Talks, but in terms of subjects, I would say history by far. History and biographies, man. Just that would give you a big picture of the world, so you could find your place.
Yeah.
Because where do you start? I tell people, "Hey, you got your identity," but where do you start? Well, you gotta know where the fuck, know the world around you. Know your ancestors, know the history of Canada, America, Africa, wherever you're from, and that gives you a map. History is like a map. It shows you where you're at. So now you're like, okay, I see where I'm at in the timeline of the universe. Now I see where I can go.
Well, like the history thing is very key, right? But I know some viewers right now, they're listening to this and they're thinking to themselves, fuck that, it's too boring. So what's some good things that people can start doing right away? Like maybe they could look up some wars or something interesting, but like what would you recommend that can get people interested in history so that they could start learning more about it and sort of develop that sense of identity that you were talking about?
To be honest with you, that's one question where I'm just going to be honest with the subscribers is the road is not always going to be smooth.
Okay.
I can tell you, okay, well, try to take this shortcut and try to do this. But I'm telling straight up, yo, like, do you want this bad enough? You're going to have to do some shit that you don't want to do. Again, I hated history. I hated reading. I hated all these things, right?
Yeah.
It paid off. So at one point, you got to do, because if we keep showing them shortcuts on how to make it easier, then we're creating a habit of just fucking avoiding pain and avoiding. Yeah. I'm like, nah, that's the filtering process. I think that's the way that fucking life filters out the champion thing. Is because if everything is too easy, everyone is gonna fucking do it. Some things are just fucking plain out boring. It's not every day I want to go to the gym. It's not every day I want to fuck. Yeah, I love the gym. It's not every day I want to fucking go out there and live hard. It's not every day. I hate, again, I have a shitty appetite, but yeah, I have to force myself to eat because I'm like, man, I have a goal that requires me to eat. I can't get big if I don't get my meals in. So I do what I don't want to do in order to get my goal. So sometimes you just gotta fucking suck it up and do it. But a good place to start for history. The reason why I don't want to pick something in the middle of the timeline, right, is because if you start a war randomly, you're not gonna have any idea what the fuck is going on because you just came in the middle of the world timeline. So what I did was I went online and I put timeline of the fucking world. Started from like the fucking prehistoric days all the way to fucking today, right? And I started from the beginning. You don't have to know everything about it, just the big picture. All right, whether you believe in science or not. Okay, well, atoms got together and shit. Planets were formed. Dinosaurs, blah blah blah. Oh, the first civilization. Da 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 da. You can watch documentaries on that. You could just go to the timelines and then just get a big picture perspective. Yeah, some part of it is gonna be fun. Some of it's gonna be boring. But again, you won't, because you don't know your identity yet. You won't know what parts of history are gonna attract you unless you look at the whole thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could start with wars. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. That's a good idea. You could start with wars. You could just be, I'm just gonna pick a war. Who's the greatest? In fact, that's how I actually started before I did the timeline.
Okay.
I was like, who's the greatest conqueror of all time? I was like, all right, I went online. That was years ago. Like Alexander the Great, Napoleon, Genghis Khan. All these guys that we heard about. And then I made a mistake to just start with just looking at wars. Right. Problem was, I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I was like, okay, like, how did he get here? Why is he so good at 16 years old? So I had to go back and learn about, oh, his dad was the real monster. People don't know that Philip was the fucking reason why Alexander existed, you know? And I was like, oh shit, but why is Philip so good? So I had to keep going back in history to find out, okay, you know, then I was like, you know what, fuck it, let me just start from the beginning. And then eventually I caught up and everything made sense. Now I understand the world from a big picture perspective because I know where we're coming from, you know? It's like I tell my brother all the time because he hates history too, and I'm trying to get him to get into history. And I tell him, you want power, you want knowledge, you want understanding, foresight, whatever, you need to know history, right? And I give him an example. I said, if you're drunk and then you wake up in the middle of the street in your car, and people are like, where are you going? You go, I don't know, I just woke up drunk. But if I tell you where you came from, you'll know where you're going. If I say, oh, okay, well, your car is facing this way, you just came from the club, you go, oh, okay, I'm going home. Or if I tell you, well, your home is this way, you're facing that way, you're gonna be, oh, okay, my house is here. Well, today's Saturday night, I was going to my friend's house to play poker. You know, where you came from helps you figure out where you're going. So when you learn history, trust me, it gives you an idea of where the world is going and what role you have to play in that direction. You know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's deep stuff, man. And honestly, like this chat has been great. I don't know if I have any more questions because it's been a long talk.
Yeah.
But I think we really touched upon everything for the most part, and I hope it's really gonna help some guys out. So like I'm just curious, is there any things that perhaps I missed, or do you have any future like last type of comments for the viewers? Something that you just want to get across, make sure that like everybody follows like this type of word.
Well, first thing is, if somebody's been watching this long, because I'm looking, it says 3 hours and 16 minutes.
I'm going to put timelines, timestamps, just so you know.
Nice. Yeah, perfect. So if somebody's been following this long, first of all, congrats, because then that's already the filtering process right there. Like,
you find out who's serious.
Yeah, because you have internet access if you're watching this. That means that you could have been watching fucking, I don't know, like some show or playing video games, but you decided. So that already tells me that you're trying to improve your life, especially if they're subscribing to your channel or somebody who's trying to improve. You know, it's not somebody who just wants. Somebody who's watching this is trying to improve. You know, so that to me tells me that you guys are already in the right direction. You know, you're trying to change your life because again, you could have been playing Final Fantasy 15 that I see everybody posting about on Facebook, right? Mm-hmm. So you're already in the right thing. And what I want to tell them is that the side of you that's like looking for information and looking for like knowledge and all that stuff. That's the alpha in you trying to come the fuck out. Because I always tell people that you don't become something. You remove what's covering, you remove whatever's covering your true identity. You know what I mean? People say, that's how I tell people, you don't gotta become alpha. People are like, I'm trying to be alpha. I'm like, you don't have to try to be alpha. You are alpha. You just covered up with sensitivity, weakness, fucking, like all this bullshit, laziness, all that stuff. You just gotta peel that shit off and let the fucking beast come out. It sounds cheesy as fuck, but that's the truth. You don't become something you're not. Think about it. You can't. An ego can become a cheetah. You don't morph. It sounds cool. We watch Transformers, but that's not how shit happens. You already have that what I call alpha gene inside of you. It just has to come out. So it's dying to come out. So it's calling out for information and knowledge. Like to try to figure out its identity so it could actually break free. So I'm telling them, you're already part of the transformation process where well, not transformation, but the emerging process where your true identity is trying to come out. So my advice is let that motherfucker out. Let him out, man. When you lazy and just chilling all day, whatever, you suffocating him. Mm-hmm. Just let him out. How do you let him out? Knowledge, man. Knowledge is what chips away. Knowledge is what tells them, okay, because in order to find your identity, you have to first find out what you're not, right? So knowledge was gonna help you realize, okay, you're not this. Stop trying to be a fucking rapper. You're not this. Stop trying to be a fucking football player. Right? It's gonna peel off the useless shit and it's gonna reveal, the masterpiece. So my advice to everybody out there is just keep listening to the alpha inside. Stop trying to be this person. Stop trying to be. I know it's stuff that you heard everywhere, but it is so true. Stop trying to be something that you're not. I can't remember who said that quote, but a guy said, if you keep trying to be somebody else, who's gonna be you? Right? If you keep trying to be somebody else, who's gonna be you? Somebody has to be you, right? Mm. You just do it. You just play that role, man. Play that role. If Alex tried to be, I don't know, fucking some other guy, we were never gonna meet Alex. We were never gonna meet you, motherfucker. We were never gonna meet Alex. You know what I mean? Like so it's because you chose to be yourself that we know you today. So I just keep telling people out there, man, just let the alpha inside of you come out. Stop trying to be so and so and so and so. If you're watching this video, it's because the alpha is crying out. It's trying to come out. It's like, hey, that urge. That's why you're not comfortable. That's why you're watching this video. You're not comfortable just playing video games and just fucking being on the couch all day. Something inside of you is trying to come out. That's a sign right there. So that should already give you hope. Just let him come out. How? Learn. Start with histories, go into biographies, whatever. And then when he comes out, we'll hear about you. We'll hear about you in the news. We'll hear about you somewhere. So that's my advice to whoever's watching. Just let the guy out.
All right, well said, man. And I just want to thank you for being here today. Like, honestly, it's been a great chat. I even learned some things too from yourself. And honestly, like, I hope this helps out a lot of people. And I'm certain that the guys who made this far, it's definitely gonna have an impact. And certainly there are people who got to this point. So once again, thank you for being here, Migan.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
I want to wish you continual success with your family life, your business life, health, all the good stuff.
Thank you, and I really appreciate what you're doing, man. I appreciate you. I thought one thing that I learned from is obviously your thirst. It motivates me because I realize, hey, I'm not the only one that's hungry for knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And obviously your humility. The fact that you're not afraid to put yourself out there and say, all right, I'm learning this, or like for example, you say you just learned something new. Not every guy wants to fucking admit that. Everyone's like, yeah, I already knew it all. That gives me hope, because to me that's what an alpha is. Somebody who's not insecure, who was not afraid to give props and whatever. And again, I appreciate what you're doing as far as, you have some videos where you stand up to fucking people, man. I fucking love that shit, man. Where you're like, you know what? I don't give a fuck. This is bullshit. You don't care if you're gonna get trolled, you're gonna get dislikes, you're not stupid. You know that's gonna come. You know the backlash is gonna come. But you don't give a fuck. You're like, you know what? I'm standing true to what I believe in. So really appreciate that. It's good to have another fellow mind out there that's again looking to grow, looking to evolve, without looking down on everybody else and thinking that that shit. So really appreciate you too, and thanks for having me on the podcast or show, or interview or whatever.
Yeah, it's pleasure's all mine, man.
All right, we'll do more in the future, man.
Hey, sure thing. That would be great. I know you're busy with what you're doing right now. We have to schedule this and all, but sure, we'll stay in touch. We'll talk. And yeah, man, for sure.
See you at the top, man. See you at the top, definitely, man.
Yeah, I'll see you around.